Chapter 351. Soon, Luwu received the data. As the event notification appeared, all the players' bodies turned into white light and returned to the artifact space. Then, the battle artifact placed them in the land of Naraka. However, very soon, the skillful Tenluo gorilla players began to stand out. The Naraka players could not help but cheer at this option. After all, they were the most familiar with the environment in Naraka. This option was extremely beneficial to them. Let me devour all of you. Use your experience to strengthen me, In Xiaoqi said in a serious tone. The moment the event began, the players did not hesitate and rushed toward the experience light balls. They wanted to evolve as soon as possible. It was not difficult to find Eric. Eric's body was so huge that it could cover the sky. As long as the players were in the same area, they would be able to spot him by looking up. In the later stages, the Tianluo gorilla players rose in all aspects. They did not die easily. In addition, they could absorb the skills of their targets remotely, which made their ranking rise rapidly. As for the Candle God, who had the weakest combat power, other than the players who were far ahead of the others in the early stages, the rest had basically become the hunting targets of the giant bird and the Tianluo gorilla. Countless fist-sized blue light balls were floating around them. They were the light of life, which was also an important resource for the early stages of evolution. The battle had reached its climax the moment it began. Especially Eric. Everyone, let me devour all of you. Otherwise, the first place in the land of Naraka will be gone. Eric roared at his surroundings. All the players who entered the land of Naraka turned into the devouring spirits that were floating in the air. The most important thing now was to devour the enemy players and earn points for their land of Naraka. Eric, who had the highest level, had reached level 480. However, devouring Eric was not an easy task. He had a huge number of points, but his strength was equally terrifying. When the event appeared, a selection interface appeared in front of all the players. A total of 3 forms of the devouring spirits were displayed. First place, Land of Naraka, 80,123 points. Eric will only become stronger if this continues. We can't devour him. They relied on their own abilities to avoid the strong and only hunted down the weaker players. This way, their growth began to accelerate. Event notification 2. In this event, other than devouring other simulated players to evolve, you can also devour the Light of Life to evolve. The Light of Life will be refreshed every 10 minutes on the map. At this moment, there was a difference of opinion. Individual points ranking. He only had one thought, and that was to devour it. Otherwise, the Naraka server would definitely lose. In the face of such a situation, both the players from the original server and the European server were extremely troubled. In Xiaoqi did not waste any time. She opened her mouth and began to swallow Lu Chai. Number 1. Eric, Candle God. Level 146%. The slaughter unfolded at the same time. Only by doing so would they have enough strength to challenge other players and ensure their own safety. Third place, Land of Tsangshu, 6, 2129, 125 points. Seeing that Lu Chai had agreed to it, the players once again fell into a dilemma. After all, such a sacrifice would put them at the bottom of the individual leaderboard. As it was 8 o'clock at night, a game notification appeared. Fourth, Li Xing, Candle God level 8476%, Kuan Peng, 39%, Tian Luo Qi, 16%, Candle God, 45%. However, the players from Beiki and the European server did not care much about it. Although they hoped to get the region they were from, it was not a big problem if they did not get it. They could also visit the scenery of Naraka and treat it as a vacation. Server-wide announcement. The Great Devouring Melee event has officially begun. Teleportation begins. He had discussed with his team members in advance what to do in this event. He would look for his teammates during the devouring process. When they met, he would let his teammates choose to sacrifice themselves to help him. At this moment, Eric was high up in the sky, constantly swallowing the Light of Life. However, after seeing the big region leaderboard, the struggling eyes of many players became determined. They swam toward In Xiaoqi. However, the players who chose Kuan Peng were different. At level 0, They were invincible in one-on-one battles. They decisively pounced on the other devouring species that had more experience. At this moment, the original server players decided to help Yin Xiaoqi fight for the first place in the big region. It could be said that this was a fight to the death. If they failed, their big region would only be ranked at the bottom. However, if they succeeded, they would definitely be the first place in the big region. Even so, there was still the risk of a secret code being leaked during the game. Hence, asking questions became the second line of defense. Eric, Yin Xiaoqi, Lu Zhan, and Li Xing had the same idea in the event. They wanted to use their teammates to train themselves in exchange for a sudden increase in their individual strength. Then, they could drive the growth of their teammates. What should we do? Wu Guoyi, who had transformed into Kuan Peng, asked gloomily. The big region leaderboard. They only wanted to be the first place. As a veteran player of Battle Online, the original server players all had their own pride. They were the players from the European server and the original server. As the notification ended, 3 scenes appeared in front of the players. They began to move horizontally, and their speed was getting faster and faster. Since they were all at level 0, the other 2 types of players would basically choose to devour the light of life to grow. Seeing that the players had made their choice, the game notification sounded again. Every time it devoured, it could kill a whole group of players. It was like a killing machine. After 1 round, Eric's experience did not decrease. Instead, he leveled up twice, and his body became bigger. The event officially began. This situation was undoubtedly fatal. Eric was furious when he saw this. While devouring his teammates, he turned around and headed toward the candle god of the American military. Server announcement, selection complete. Starting to draw the event scenes. Land of Beiki, land of Tsangshu, hell. Damn it, I don't want to lose anyway. I'll listen to you. Devour me first. Lu Chai squeezed through the crowd and came to Yin Xiaoqi's side. In just 10 minutes, Lu Wu's data showed that nearly 5 million players had been devoured. The war was about to begin. At the last moment, the final battle began. Second place, land of Beiki, 6,723,0001, for 85 points. He had become the most desired target of devouring by the players from the European server and the original server because he had an unimaginable amount of points. As long as he was devoured, their own points would definitely skyrocket and the points of the Naraka server would plummet. This kind of combat method gave many small teams the qualification to devour powerful opponents. The battles became more intense. In the end, the players from all 3 servers chose to fulfill one person's wish in exchange for the victory of a big domain. It could be said that Eric could even decide the outcome of the devouring war at this moment. However, unlike the original server and the European server, the strongest server, Naraka, had a disagreement at this crucial moment. The other candle god was owned by the American military who had been in a heated battle with Eric recently. During the 1-hour wait, the players were basically reading the detailed explanation on the event page. By the 2nd hour of the event, there was already someone who had broken through level 100 on the individual point ranking. From this data, it could be seen that most of the players were still inclined towards a candle god that could grow quickly. The choice of Tianluo Qi, who needed his own skills, was at the bottom. The levels of the players around Yin Xiaoqi were not low. Most of them were almost at level 100. Although they needed more experience points to level up in the later stages, the experience points they had accumulated were also incomparably huge. The form of Tianluo Qi was similar to Cthulhu in the players' hearts. It was filled with a mysterious aura. Under such circumstances, the candle god that Yin Xiaoqi had transformed into spoke to the players around her. At this moment, the 2nd and 3rd place were considered failures to them. Their main focus was to snatch the 1st place in Naraka, and Eric was the key. In order to ensure that the enemy would not know the secret code of their big domain, the secret code of the 3 big domains was basically shouted in the regional live chat channel by the representative of the big domain the moment they entered the event scene. 3rd place, Lu Zhan, Candle God level 86, 87% by the 3rd hour. The players who were initially unorganized gradually became organized and began to move as a team, devouring their teammates. In addition to the 30% bonus experience points, the players who had chosen the candle god developed rapidly in the early stages. It could be said that there was a huge gap between them and the other players. At this time, dense shadows appeared from the west and south at the same time. They were also extremely huge. Service-wide announcement: the Great Devouring Melee event has officially begun. Please choose your devouring mimicry for this event. As Yin Xiaoqi's body became bigger and bigger, Eric also noticed her. He was shocked because Yin Xiaoqi's body size was already comparable to his. Throughout the event, the players schemed against each other. They thought of ways to sneak into the enemy's camp and also thought of ways to prevent the enemy from sneaking into their camp. At this time, the individual leaderboard was basically occupied by the players who had chosen the candle god. Their goal was the same, which was to kill Eric. It did not mean that the candle god was more powerful than the other two devouring species. It was just that the players who occupied the individual leaderboard had planned this beforehand. The rock looked like a whale with alternating black and white colors. However, compared to the whale, it was more domineering and ferocious. 5th place, Yi, rock level 78, 13% upon hearing that. The surrounding players were stunned. The candle god looked extremely simple. It was just a ball of burning will-o'-the-wisp. Under Eric's devouring, the surrounding light of life gushed into his mouth continuously like rivers flowing into the sea, nourishing his growth. Event hint: during this event, you are not allowed to kill wild monsters, and you are not allowed to affect anything other than the players. 2nd place, Yin Xiaoqi, candle god level 97, 21% as he devoured. Yin Xiaoqi's level began to skyrocket, and her body size increased accordingly. Upon seeing that, Li Xing from the European server began to summon the European server's players. After all, they could only complete the event better if they had a good understanding of the event. This was the Great Devouring Melee, the battle between the 3 regions. 60 million players from the 3 regions had gathered. Apart from the experience points, some of the players had also gathered in the same region. In order not to accidentally hurt their allies, the players from the 3 regions had their own secret codes. In the first stage, the players who chose the rock were the most powerful. The players had already made up their minds about these 3 options. Hence, they chose without hesitation. Approximately 30 seconds later, the scene began to slow down until it stopped. At that moment, the golden needle in the center was pointing at the Naraka region. At that moment, Eric was like a big boss in a game. However, the difference between him and a boss in a game was that not only could he recover his health points, but he could also grow by killing players. It could be said that he had completely negated one of the biggest advantages of the players. By the 4th hour, which was when the event was about to end, the players were no longer interested in things like the light of life that could only give them negligible experience points. Upon hearing that, many members of Eric's party rushed toward the spot that Eric was talking about. Meanwhile, a portion of the players headed toward another huge candle god. The players from the Naraka server naturally protected Eric with their lives. However, the players from the original server and the European server would not let them have their way. They tacitly gave up on the previous dispute and charged toward Eric from their respective directions. Chapter 352. They could clearly see the devouring data. Reinhardt's level was higher than AI, Mi's, and Eric's, so he was exempted from devouring. Eric and Yin Xiaoqi's devouring effect was reduced by 28% and 25% respectively. Reinhardt suddenly realized what Li Xing wanted to do when he heard Li Xing's words. I met many good friends and made many good comrades here. They are my biggest gains in the game. Therefore, Yin Xiaoqi gave up on devouring her teammates without hesitation and changed her target to Eric. Li Xing's body kept shrinking as Reinhardt devoured him. The moment he shattered, Reinhardt's Kuan Peng rose to level 468. The U.S. military's candle god had perished. Eric pounced on Yin Xiaoqi without hesitation. Quick, devour me. Initially, the players thought that the final victory would be decided between Yin Xiaoqi and Eric. However, Reinhardt was undoubtedly a dark horse. I've persevered for half a year, and I'm about to face the last round of chemotherapy. I'm very weak now. Although I have the courage to face the most terrifying outcome, I still have a lot of reluctance in my heart. I can't bear to leave my parents, my family, battle online, my good friends and brothers in the game. I really want to see the day when a European server's players can reach the top. I'm really looking forward to that day, and then I'll cheer with you. Xiaoqi became Eric and Reinhardt's target this time. The Naraka server's players, who were originally the strongest, had a disagreement at the last moment. The European server and the local server's players seemed to be very united. All of them swarmed toward Li Xing and Xiaoqi. Fourth place, Qiu Mo, Tianluo Gorilla, level 97, 76%, as the three parties devoured each other. Kuan Peng obviously had a huge advantage in terms of skills. It even made a comeback at the last moment. There was only one winner. If Xiaoqi continued to grow, he wouldn't be able to compete with Xiaoqi even if Eric was devoured. Reinhardt knew this very well. Mr. Reinhardt, if you see this post, I want to tell you that I'm your little fan and I often watch your teaching videos. In my eyes, you're the strongest. There's no one else like you. You must lead the European server to rise. Good luck. The audience outside the venue was in an uproar. At that moment, the U.S. military's candle god was too crucial. If Eric succeeded in devouring it, they would have no chance of turning the tables. With a 312% devour speed bonus and a level 84 devour exemption, Lionheart's devour speed was no weaker than Eric's. At this moment, Li Xing suddenly looked at Reinhardt, who was at the side. Due to the fact that it was the later stages of the game, the points for level 18 had already exceeded 30 million. Due to the final decision made by the U.S. military, Xiaoqi was at a disadvantage in the final devouring. However, Xiaoqi had a bad feeling about what the U.S. military did. Even with the help of countless original players in the devouring process, this disadvantage was still irreversible. The European server players were all calling out to this player under the post. Goodbye, catastrophes. Perhaps we won't see each other again, but I hope you are well. Brother, come back. Your dream has come true. Our European server is #1. Finally, I actually have a small wish. The three regions fought as a team with the consideration of cultivating the candle god, which was more cost-effective. However, no one expected the Great Rock's devouring ability to become so powerful in the end. Under such circumstances, Eric decisively changed his direction and chose to devour Reinhardt because Reinhardt was the biggest threat at the moment. I've learned a lot from being with them, and I've learned a lot. Hurry up, devour me. Their levels are too high now. If I rely on my current candle god form, I won't have a chance of turning the tables even if I devour all of you. The Great Rock that you chose is the strongest in terms of individual ability. Moreover, no player has ever leveled up to a Great Rock above level 300. Perhaps this will be a turning point. Second place, Land of Baki, 197,541,485 points. Slap. Not only did the devouring of Reinhardt not shrink, but it also allowed him to grow slowly. After another change of devouring, Reinhardt, who had become the strongest devour seed, became Eric and Emily's devouring target again. There were only 10 minutes left. The three parties began to change their target back and forth. The first place on the scoreboard was one after another. The situation was at a stalemate. Although they were unwilling, for the sake of the region's ranking, the United States military made the final decision at this moment. At this moment, a post on the European server's forum was suddenly pinned at the top. Nearly 10 million European server players flooded into the post, shouting and shouting in the post. Although his level had been increasing rapidly, the United States military chose to devour him. Hence, the experience in his body was depleting too. His devouring efficiency had decreased by at least 10%, while Eric's devouring efficiency was 100%. If this continued, the outcome would not be optimistic. He attacked from behind and bit Eric's body. The devouring ability was instantly activated. The devouring ability was extremely fast under the suppression of levels. The United States military's candle god began to resist unwillingly. However, he did not target Eric. Instead, he chose Xiaoqi and started devouring. At this moment, Eric's level was undoubtedly the highest. He had already broken through level 540. Naturally, he became Reinhardt's first target. Reinhardt's level did not decrease during the devouring. Instead, his size seemed to be increasing bit by bit. "We've won the championship. Hurry up and come back to celebrate with us. Stop sleeping." As their levels soared, their size became bigger and their individual points were approaching Eric's. My hair fell out in clumps and my teeth fell out gradually. Looking at my weak self in the mirror, I even felt that I was not human at all. In the distance, the European server players were still devouring one another. Then, they rushed into Li Xing's mouth one after another. "Reply, brother. Are you still there?" First place, land at Sangshu, 325. 754123 points. At this moment, the United States military also understood that they could not protect themselves. Although Eric was their biggest enemy in Naraka, Eric could at least represent Naraka. However, the situation had changed this time. At this moment, Eric could not care less anymore. He decisively pounced toward the United States military's candle god. "This post might be my last words, so I'd better leave some instructions." Eric understood Reinhardt's thoughts at this moment. He changed his direction and chose Yin Xiaoqi to devour. At this moment, all schemes were useless. "Alan, you'll be the team's main tank after I leave. You must protect our teammates, especially Jessica. She's such a cute little cleric." Fifth place, Quinn Tianluo, Gorilla level 89, 45%. Goodbye, Battle Online. "I really want to continue playing, but unfortunately, I really can't hold on anymore." At this moment, millions of European server players swarmed into this post, calling out for their beloved Battle Online player. OP, the shining golden knight Reinhardt obviously did not understand what was going on. He could not help but be stunned. Imitation skill, Kuin Swallow, devouring speed plus 312%, can devour targets 84 levels higher than the user. As Eric and Yin Xiaoqi did not see Reinhardt's attributes, they made a huge mistake in their judgment. Although Reinhardt did not gain much experience after deducting the consumption, the balance was completely broken. Did you see that? We're the champions, we're first. Third place, Eric, Candle God, level 203, 87%. At this moment, the players outside the game were extremely nervous. Under such circumstances, it was possible for any region to become the first, but no one could guarantee the final result. At the bottom of the post, there was a unified reply from the European server players. "Jessica, you silly little cleric, practice your skills more. Don't be unable to find a healing target again. Let everyone be less worried. Knock on the head." As Eric's body became smaller and smaller, Yin Xiaoqi's body became bigger and bigger. At this moment, Reinhardt suddenly gave up devouring Eric and pounced towards Yin Xiaoqi. When it was 12 o'clock, the server announcement sounded. After a brief silence, all the European server players cheered. Third place, Hell Domain, 172,149,125 points, individual ranking. First place, Reinhardt, Rock level 543, 16% on the other side. The size of the U.S. military's candle god became smaller and smaller as it was devoured. Eric and Yin Xiaoqi, who were initially evenly matched, now had a gap of 18 levels. His team members also received the last news from the players' parents, telling the European server players that he had left. "I still remember the time when I plucked up the courage to tell all of you that I might not live for more than a few months. Your encouragement and comfort really touched me. It was also because of your companionship that I was optimistic and had the courage to face death." As for the champion, it was the final farewell gift from the European server players to their beloved Battle Online, the players who love the European server. They would use the experience of all the European server players to cultivate a top-notch rock and see if it was qualified to turn the tables in the end. However, the Candle God was different from the rock. There was no level exemption bonus when it devoured a target that was higher than its own level. According to the current level, its devouring speed was reduced by 58%, which could not make up for its loss at all. This was undoubtedly fatal because the Kuan Peng that Reinhardt had transformed into had a 380% increase in devouring speed at this moment. Looking at his attributes at level 468, Reinhardt was ecstatic. This gave Ian Xiaoqi another chance to grow. At this moment, the European server players wished they could tell him that it was his idol, Mr. Reinhardt, who had won the championship for them. His dream had come true. Come back quickly and celebrate with us. Yuna, you're the most skilled player in the team. Keep it up and work towards your goal of becoming the #1 warlock. I believe you can succeed. Keep it up. Content. I'm a terminal cancer patient. When I knew that I was about to die, I had self-destructed and abandoned myself. I even thought of suicide to end my life. At least this way, I wouldn't be tormented by illness anymore. Although I'm very reluctant to leave my parents and family, I really can't live like this anymore, because every time I go through chemotherapy, it's a nightmare. Reinhardt's appearance made Ari's heart skip a beat. May there be no pain in heaven. Goodbye, comrades. European servers Scourge Army XXX server-wide announcement. The Great Devouring Battle has officially ended. The ranking list is as follows. After knowing the news, the European server players who had won the championship did not cheer. Instead, they silently left comments under the post, reminiscing the past. Under such circumstances, Reinhardt, who had transformed into a rock, had complete control of the situation. At this moment, in the battle between him and Ian Xiaoqi, his level was still increasing. It could be said that victory was within his grasp. However, the addition of Reinhardt changed the situation once again. Alva, you still owe me 23 soul coins. If there's a chance, I will definitely pay you back. So, keep it up and make money for me. Happy. At this moment, Ian Xiaoqi suddenly charged forward. Her target was none other than the American military's candle god. At this moment, Reinhardt set his eyes on Ari and Ian Xiaoqi, who were devouring each other. He swung his tail and pounced forward with a roar. Just when I had the courage to end myself, I coincidentally met Battle Online. It was also the reason that gave me the motivation to persevere. At the same time, on the European server, Reinhardt, rock. It's a pity that I might be done for this May Day. Smile. However, this player's last message was on the 29th of April. After that, there was no more sound. At this moment, there were only 30 minutes left before the end of the event. All three major regions had made their final decisions. Since Li Xing had made up his mind, Reinhardt did not hesitate. He pounced on Li Xing decisively and activated Devouring. The final result was beyond the expectations of many players. At this moment, two huge fireballs rushed toward the American military's candle god from different directions. At the moment when the three fireballs collided, the sky shone with a dazzling golden light. The American military's candle god began to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye. Its level dropped rapidly while Ari and Ian Xiaoqi's level began to skyrocket. The major region ranking. The May Day event is coming soon. I really want to do the event mission with all of you and go crazy together. Second place, Ian Xiaoqi, Candle God level 2, 27% at this moment. His level was no less than Ari's. He could totally compete with him. The American military's Candle God was also growing rapidly and had to be stopped as soon as possible. Chapter 353. You have quite a lot going on in your mind. Bailey said as she took a sideways glance at Igor while eating a chicken drumstick. Calm down, young man. Lu Wu said. If Igor chose to reincarnate, he would not go to heaven or hell. He would still be trapped in the artifact until Lu Wu wanted to wake him up. I'm dead. Igor was in a daze. He suddenly realized why he was here. Wasn't he receiving treatment? At this moment, the boy suddenly noticed his teammates' comments in the post. Server announcement. In memory of the player Igor, who has always loved Battle Online and loved his friends, the R&D team of Battle Online has specially created a new NPC, Igor, to accompany everyone in their long journey in the game. However, apart from Lu Wu and Bailey, no one would know that the NPC Igor who would accompany them to the end of their journey was the real Igor. Don't get too excited. This is not hell, but a place that can give you a new life. This time, Igor nodded vigorously. What do you want to do? Bring it on. Lu Wu shook his head. You're already dead. You have to accept this reality, but I can help you change your identity to live. Although they were opponents, they were still players. At this moment, he still did not notice his current state. He was completely immersed in the joy of winning first place in a European server. Little bro, are you surprised? Are you excited? Crossed off. Other than resurrection, there was only one way to be an NPC. They described how strong they were at the last moment of their lives, but life was fragile. In the end, they could not withstand the torture of illness. Many players expressed their gratitude in the forum, praising the conscience of the team behind Battle Online. As long as they could hold on to what was useful now, they would be extremely satisfied and happy. May there be no illness in heaven. Goodbye, comrades. Hellscourge Army XXX, this player's words before he left reminded them of themselves. They also realized that they should cherish what they had now, because what they had was what others yearned for. After everything was settled, Igor was sent to the underworld, the land of Songshu. At the same time, a server announcement was heard. Lu Wu, who was sitting in front of his computer, fell silent when he saw the post. Upon hearing Igor's question, Lu Wu suddenly recalled that a large number of players in the thread had said, "May there be no sickness in heaven." It gave him a headache. After all, this was not heaven. This game is real, Igor exclaimed after reading the information. Although the boy who loved games and friends couldn't hear their farewells, at least the players felt a sense of comfort in their hearts. Bailey first erased their memories from Igor's mind. Then, she began to insert their memories and missions as NPCs. Finally, she added the restrictions of NPCs. After listening to Lu Wu's explanation, Iggy fell into a dilemma. When Igor heard this, his spirit body suddenly flickered and became indistinct. Clearly, he was frightened. Father, mother. Igor was a little emotional. At that moment, he realized that his body was very illusory and was floating on the ground. It was Iggy's post. As the screen scrolled, Iggy saw the players' cries of longing for his return, the players' blessings, and the players' farewell. May there be no sickness in heaven. See you again, comrade in arms. Beiki Disaster Army XXX at this moment. The players of Beiki and Naraka were deeply touched. Igor fell silent after hearing this. Although he was young, he was not stupid. He had some guesses in his mind. Who are you? Lu Wu's words were mixed with lies. Where is this place? Igor took a step back and asked anxiously. At this moment, he suddenly wanted to do something. You're quite an internet addict. Bailey squinted her eyes and smiled. After confirming his idea, Lu Wu decided to make a completely different NPC. Wise choice, Little Lee. Stop eating and get to work. Lu Wu immediately smiled. Forget it. I'm too lazy to explain to you. Bailey, give him some information about the players. Lu Wu was speechless. Hell, why did I come to hell? Iggy asked in horror. Now, I'll give you two choices. One is to go to where you belong, heaven or hell. The other is to live again as an NPC. Of course, if you choose the second option, there will be a lot of taboos that will restrict you. These restrictions were also for the sake of Lu Wu and the players. If the original Igor was put into the game, Lu Wu was afraid that it would cause a huge impact. It was also necessary for the subsequent settings to exist. They also left comments under the post. Yes, you can go back, but only as an NPC. Moreover, we will be erased from your memory, but you will retain your previous memory and be given a mission. Hearing this, Iggy shifted his gaze to the screen that was still scrolling down. Looking at the farewell posts, his gaze gradually became determined. A large amount of information about the players began to surge in Iggy's mind. As he browsed through the information, his expression became more and more surprised. After a while, Iggy opened his eyes. When he saw Lu Wu and Bailey, he subconsciously took a step back. If your parents are also playing Battle Online, then you will definitely meet them. If I don't play games, then maybe. I can't guarantee the future, but you can look forward to it. Yes, you're dead. Although he knew that the answer was hard to accept, Lu Wu still admitted it. Some things would only be lost if they were lost. In the eyes of many people, happiness was obtained through comparison. However, in the eyes of some people, happiness was grasping the present. His name was Iggy, a 17-year-old boy. His birthday would be in 23 days. He was a boy who wanted to give up, but in the end, he chose to face life with determination. Lu Wu tried his best to sound as friendly as possible, So he said. Luwu shook his head slightly and waved his hand. The interface of the battle forum appeared in front of Iggy. This time, there were no incidents of players from different servers provoking each other in the battle forum. Consider it as the rise of the human race. I will always be on the side of the players. If you believe me. Luwu smiled calmly. To Luwu and Bei Li, these rules and regulations were very necessary because it would not affect the operation of the game. After listening to Luwu's explanation, the first thing that came to Iggy's mind was reincarnation. Suddenly, a look of reluctance appeared on his face. After all, everything had to start from scratch, and the past would be far away. Soon, Luwu found the soul of the European server player. After browsing through Iggy's information, Luwu summoned his soul from the soul storage. A player who loved Battle Online so much that he was reluctant to leave could not bear the torture of his illness in the end and left. As Bailey waved her hand, the power of the artifact space emerged and entered Iggy's soul, instantly triggering his memory. In the artifact space, Iggy's soul was still in a confused state. He did not know anything before his death. He just stood quietly in the artifact space, his eyes lifeless. I want to go back. I want to continue being with them. Can I still go back to the game? Iggy suddenly became excited again. Don't worry. He could have decided your life and death at will. But he gave you this opportunity. You are also the first player in the game to get this opportunity. Bailey replied after chewing a piece of meat. It was fine to be slightly biased. After all, Iggy had his own feelings and was a real NPC. However, Luwu set a value for him, which was a maximum of 5% bias. Luwu was right. After all, the artifact was constructed by the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation. It was also a part of the underworld, and hell was also a part of the underworld. This was because when the players from Beiki and Naraka entered the European server forum, they saw the same farewell post that was pinned at the top. When he opened his eyes again, Iggy found himself back in the hidden dragon village in the land of Sangshu. He could not help but smile. Can I be resurrected? Iggy was slightly excited when he heard this. For example, when he obtained the right to issue quests and award rewards, he could not issue quests and rewards at will. He knew that he had been reincarnated as an NPC, and he could be with the players again. With a thought, the artifact began to operate and began to scan the huge soul storage in the artifact. At this moment, Iggy's heart ached. However, as he was in the state of soul, there were no tears that flowed out along with his emotions. After Iggy agreed to it, his transformation began. Bailey nodded. Just as she was about to control the artifact to erase part of Iggy's memory, Iggy suddenly spoke. At this moment, Luwu and Bei Li's figures appeared in the artifact space. For example, he could not tell the players that the game was real. Even if he did, the words would be blocked by the artifact. The memories of the artifact, Luwu, and Bei Li in his mind had been erased. Those rules were no longer binding him. They had become his own thoughts. Everything had been perfectly integrated into his memory and personality. All right, Bailey raised her drumstick and pointed at Iggy. Suddenly, part of the information about the players in the artifact flowed into Iggy's mind. Did we get the first place in the European server? Iggy said excitedly. Although this was just a game, there were too many emotions and hot-bloodedness. The indignation in the hearts of the players from Beiki and Naraka was washed away. For example, he could not act recklessly based on his own thoughts. He had to think about the players in many aspects. The players from the 3 servers were bidding farewell to this player. Luwu suddenly felt bad for such a persistent player who loved Battle Online so much. It was not difficult for him to resurrect the players, but the impact was undoubtedly huge. Before he had the power to fight against the heavenly realm, exposing himself would only harm himself and the players. Do I still have a chance to return to reality? Will I still be able to see my parents? The players from the 3 servers were in an uproar. The May Day event had officially come to an end. This player's struggle before death touched him. His persistence and reluctance at the end shocked him even more. This is not heaven. If you want to compare, it's closer to the hell that you know. Although Iggy had become an NPC, his memories in reality and in the game were still intact. Would he be biased and give more rewards when his friends from the game completed quests for him? What's your motive for doing this? Countless memories and fragments emerged and flashed across Iggy's mind like a slide. Chapter 354. Of course, but you have to promise me that you won't tell anyone about the discovery of this spiritual mine. Han Yuanwu's heart ached when he saw the workers running over the spiritual plants. Just as he was about to scold them, he saw one of the workers jump from the spiritual field to his side. In this server, it was very common for players to die, and they had already adapted to this kind of environment. After making the decision, Lu Wu and Bei Li began to plan the entry point of the new Big Region server. As an influential figure, his strength was not even at the level of a ghost commander. After that, Lu Wu understood the situation of the two big regions in detail. After some comparison, he made his final choice. The first one was the land of Xianfeng, which was similar to the land of the 9 luminaries. It had been completely unified and was controlled by one force. However, this big region had a special feature. It had a very complicated terrain with many mountains. The whole big region was covered with green plants, which was very helpful for the player's development in the early stages. At this moment, a few workers who were busy in the spiritual field suddenly rushed towards him with flushed faces. They were holding something in their hands and looked very excited. Han Yuanwu, who was about to lose his temper, suddenly changed his expression when he saw the gem that was glowing with a pale blue halo in the man's hand. The neatly divided spiritual fields were filled with a level 1 spiritual plant, half spiritual rice. Wooden houses were built around the spiritual fields, and many people were busy in the spiritual fields. He did not ask for too much. As long as they could accompany him, this spiritual plant planting area was the source of his wealth. Although he only planted level 1 spiritual plants, it still brought him a huge amount of income every year. That night, in a tavern in Brahma Sky City, in his opinion, it was the existence of this codex that protected the weak like him. It allowed him to create his own wealth within the rules and not be robbed by the strong. The surrounding workers were pleasantly surprised when they heard this. His name was Han Yuanwu, and he was one of the famous spiritual plant suppliers in Brahma Sky City. Moreover, Han Yuanwu's guarantee was very credible. They knew this master's character, and he would never break his promise. After the workers made their promise, Han Yuanwu rushed home. Where did you find it? Han Yuanwu said excitedly. After returning home, Han Yuanwu did not linger. He summoned his guards and hurried into the city. After a round of inspection, Han Yuanwu made a rough judgment. There was definitely a Tianyuan stone spirit mine below, and the scale was not small. It's right under the number 81 spiritual field up ahead. At that time, we want to dig a few holes to plant the half spiritual rice. In the end, we dug too deep and found the Tianyuan stone. Han Yuanwu felt that he was a winner in life. Everything was perfect. Our master dug up a Tianyuan stone mine. I'm going to be rich soon. Don't look down on me. If you need anything in the future, just come and find me. I have plenty of money in the future. Outside the spiritual field planting area, a slightly chubby man dressed in luxurious clothes and adorned with all kinds of precious ornaments was observing the busy workers in the spiritual field with a cheerful expression on his face. The players were amazed by the technological advancements of the game. After arriving at the number 81 spiritual field, a hole in the center came into view. What excited Han Yuanwu was that the hole was shining with a hazy blue halo. The situation in Araka was still the most complicated, and the infighting among the players was also the fiercest. This was very normal in the real world. The law was the rule, but it was slightly unbelievable in the underworld. After all, the law of the jungle was the only rule in the entire underworld. Rules were like window paper that could be easily pierced through in the face of absolute strength, and they were too unreliable. In Beiki, the players were still fighting with the 9 Luminaries' army. Moreover, they had gradually recovered from their disadvantage. It was only a matter of time before they took back Beiki and even conquered the land of the 9 Luminaries. Although this land was also controlled by a force, Lu Wu felt that the demonic spine land was very suitable for the players to develop because it had its own rules. In the end, two domains became Lu Wu's targets. Han Yuanwu took the blue gemstone from the excited worker and examined it carefully. His hands began to tremble slightly. "Master, do we have any rewards?" However, according to Bailey, the rules in the code were only relative. The strong still had special privileges. The so-called rules were just a cover for the forces. Darkness always existed. After seeing NPC Igor, they couldn't help but burst into tears. To them, NPC Igor was their son, Igor. When you have the ability to break the rules, you might admit the existence of the rules, but you will definitely do things that go beyond the rules because you have the ability to do so. At this moment, Luwu was already thinking about the opening of the Asia server. Therefore, they nodded eagerly and swore not to tell anyone about it. "Yes, Master, it was dug out from the spiritual field that you contracted. You're going to be rich." He had to block this information and seize the time to understand the specific value of the Tianyuan stone so that he could maximize his benefits. However, the demonic spine land had the same rules as in reality. Even if you were extremely weak, as long as you lived within the rules, you would be protected. This was especially true for the players of the European server. As for the workers, he would not mistreat them, since he had created this opportunity for himself. Han Yuanwu had already planned to let them live a carefree life as a gift. He quickly stepped forward and began to walk around the pit. The demonic spine code was like a sacred guardian in Han Yuanwu's heart, always protecting him. The appearance of the new NPC, Igor, caused an uproar among the players. Han Yuanwu looked at the eager workers who surrounded him and coughed a few times. "You dug it out from the spiritual field?" Then, the next step was to find a suitable domain for the players of the Asia server to develop in. At this moment, his gaze swept across the territory that belonged to him. He was extremely satisfied. Just a moment ago, he received a letter from his son, who was studying Codex knowledge in Brahma Sky City. He said that he would soon graduate and become a Codex supervisor. As the Hell server was a combined server, many players from different countries had conflicts with each other. This caused the infighting to become more and more intense. Apart from fighting for territory with the monsters of the Hell server, it was also normal for them to fight for resources with their own people. Han Yuanwu's body trembled slightly when he heard this. He then quickly ran into the spiritual field. He did not care about the half-spiritual rice that had been trampled and stepped on the spiritual plants like the workers, all the way to spiritual field number 81. Just today, Bailey provided the complete setting of the Asia server's growth system, the gene lock. At this moment, Han Yuanwu clearly knew what a huge opportunity he had obtained. This opportunity could increase his wealth by hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of times. "Master, we found this when we were digging," the worker said excitedly while holding the item in his hand. The surprise came too suddenly. In response to the players' amazement, Luwu gave an official explanation, which was that the NPC Igor was formed based on all of Igor's data in the game. That was why it was so realistic. In response to this, Bailey gave an explanation. In response to the taunts from the customers around him, the worker did not defend himself. Instead, he blushed and said in a loud voice, "Master, master, master, master." The first was the land of Xianfeng, and the second was the land of Devil Spine. A man dressed in the worker's uniform of Han Yuanwu's family was drunk. When he saw his parents again, Igor's emotions were extremely complicated. However, he did not tell them the truth. He only accompanied them silently, listened to their narration, and recalled their past. Sitting on this huge wealth, Han Yuanwu was very grateful to the creators of the Devil Spine Codex. They were actually stronger than Han Yuanwu, but they were restricted by the Codex and could not use force to suppress others. Moreover, they did not have any special skills, so they could only work to earn resources for their cultivation. Therefore, the discovery of the Tianyuan Stone Spirit Mine was a huge surprise to them. Even Igor's former teammates could not help but suspect that Igor had returned when they saw him. In comparison, the players of the other two servers were in a state of war, while the players of the Naraka server were still in a state of survival. On the European server, Yuanshu, who had always been on the offensive, suddenly chose to retreat and adopt a defensive strategy. This gradually expanded the advantage of the European server players, and they had already seized control of the Devil's domain. He wanted to look up some information. Only by understanding the specific value of the Tianyuan stone could he better obtain benefits for himself. The players were completely convinced by the skills of the battle-behind-the-scenes group. Suffering from a terminal illness, Igor's desire had always been simple. He was already very satisfied to be able to see his parents under such circumstances. After the official end of the May Day event, everything in the game was back on track. The tone of the conversation, the commonly used phrases, and the expression on his face made it seem as if Igor had come back to life. These three domains did not require Lu Wu's special attention for the time being. They were all developing rapidly. Wars could bring about rapid development, and so was competition. Master, you're going to be rich. There might be a Tianyuan stone spirit mine under this spiritual field. The worker replied excitedly. The main reason was that the Devil Spine region was overwhelmed by the war and had been destroyed several times. Therefore, the clans of the Devil Spine region had signed an agreement and formulated a code of laws. Level 5 Spirit Mine, Tianyuan Stone. Ever since they won first place in the May Day event, the morale of the European server players was high. They were also full of confidence in the battle against Yuanshu. The entire European server had started a craze to become stronger. Soon, the players informed Igor's parents of this news. Although they were originally in deep sorrow, they also chose to enter the game to see the existence that was similar to their son. During their contact, they realized that Igor was too real, unbelievably real. In other words, it was the data collection of the past 6 months that formed such a similar Igor. The choice of a big domain was crucial to the player's development in the early stages. Therefore, Lu Wu attached great importance to it. He began to explore the situation of other big domains with artifacts. With sufficient wealth and the protection of the Code of Laws, Han Yuanwu's life was very comfortable. He even hired 3 Ghost Commander-level powerhouses as his guards. Other than the strongest American military, Eric's Blacklight organization had also risen rapidly. Recently, many new organizations with great potential had emerged. Devil Spine region, in the suburbs outside the Brahma Sky City. The second big domain, the Devil Spine region, was very special. There were many forbidden lands in this big domain. Countless Aeon deities and ancient god tombs were buried there. Moreover, this big domain had collapsed several times because of the war. It was unknown how many times it had been restored. As a firm supporter of the Devil Spine Code of Laws, he had also spent a huge sum of money to send his son, Han Fa, to the Academy of Laws in the main city of the Devil Spine region to learn about the Code of Laws. He hoped that his son could become a respected code inspector, lawyer, in the future. Chapter 355. For the past 2 days, Han Yuanwu had been in Brahma Sky City, looking up information about the Tianyuan stone. After feeling that he had more or less understood the value and use of this spirit, Han Yuanwu hurried home again. What he had to do now was to find the best way to sell it. With such a gold mine, Han Yuanwu felt that he was really going to make a fortune, and his status could be supported by a huge amount of wealth. The future was full of good things. As soon as he returned to his residence outside Brahma Sky City, Brahma Sky suddenly found a crowd in front of his house. Countless people were muttering something. Han Yuanwu felt something was wrong and hurried forward. "What are you doing?" Hearing Han Yuanwu's angry rebuke, those people turned their heads. "You are Han Yuanwu?" Suddenly, someone said. Hearing this, the group of people surrounding the residence suddenly gathered around Han Yuanwu. "Boss Han, are you willing to sell this Tianyuan stone spirit, or?" "I am willing to pay a high price." "Boss Han, what's the price of your Tianyuan stone? I want to buy it in large quantities." "Boss Han, I will pay 80,000 Aeon spirit coins for a caddy of Tianyuan stone." This group of people surrounded Han Yuanwu and shouted, but Han Yuanwu's heart sank. He knew that someone had leaked the information about the Tianyuan stone mine. However, Han Yuanwu already had a specific understanding of the Tianyuan stone. Hearing the prices of the merchants around him, he snorted in his heart. Obviously, their prices did not match the true value of the Tianyuan stone. "I do not intend to sell the Tianyuan stone for the time being. Everyone, please go back, Han Yuanwu immediately said. As a proper merchant with the protection of the Devil's Spine Code, he was not afraid of offending people and rejected them without hesitation. Then, ignoring the spirit or merchants who were raising the price, he squeezed through the crowd and entered the mansion. Facing Han Yuanwu, who did not give face, the surrounding or merchants not only did not leave, but they still surrounded the entrance of his residence and shouted at him. After that, a large number of spirit or merchants would come every day after hearing the news. The news that Han Yuanwu's family had a Tianyuan stone mine quickly spread. This undoubtedly gave Han Yuanwu a headache. He had yet to organize enough manpower to excavate the Heaven Spirit stone mine, and it would definitely be troublesome if the news was leaked in advance. Moreover, he did not intend to sell the Tianyuan stones he dug out to the spirit mine merchants near Brahma Sky City. 2 days ago, he learned that Ghost Bone City had a great demand for Tianyuan stones, and the price they offered was extremely high. If he wanted to maximize profits, selling there was the wisest choice. On this day, Han Yuanwu was thinking about how he should arrange the transportation route, escorts, excavators, and other problems in his study when a guard suddenly rushed over. "Old master, it's bad. There are a lot of people digging Tianyuan stones in our spiritual field." When he heard this, Han Yuanwu suddenly stood up, looking a little incredulous. Where did they get the guts to do that? Don't they know that I'm the one who contracted this land? The leader of that group seems to be the spirit or merchants who often come here, the guard quickly replied. Han Yuanwu was infuriated. He immediately stood up and led the guards towards the spiritual farm area. When he arrived at the spiritual field, Han Yuanwu found that it was not a lot of people. It was simply a sea of people. There were thousands of people, all of whom brought tools to dig. "What are you doing? Stop. What you're doing is illegal." Han Yuanwu scolded angrily and wanted to stop them. However, these people did not listen to Han Yuanwu at all. They continued to trample and destroy his spiritual field, making the entire spiritual field a mess. There were potholes everywhere, and the spiritual plants had long been ruined. Han Yuanwu trembled with anger when he saw this. However, the number of guards he brought was not large. He could not compete with them at all, nor could he stop them. After scolding a few more times and finding that he still could not stop their destructive digging, Han Yuanwu immediately turned and left. This time, he was on a Brahma Sky City to find the Codex Supervisory Board and let them uphold justice for him. After all, this land was contracted by him, and all the resources found here belonged to him. This was an asset protected by the Codex. However, everything was not as simple as Han Yuanwu thought. When he came to Brahma Sky City, he found that all the members of the Codex Supervisory Board were not there. Those thieves were still digging. In other words, he was suffering huge losses every minute and second. Without the Codex Supervisory Board to uphold justice for him, he had no power to punish those spirit mine merchants. At this moment, he thought of the Brahma Sky City Lord. He hoped that the City Lord could give him protection. However, what he did not expect was that the City Lord was not in the city. At this moment, Han Yuanwu suddenly felt very helpless. He believed that the Codex Supervisory Board could uphold justice for him, but the enforcers were not there. He had no idea what to do. Han Yuanwu could only choose to go home. On the other side of the spiritual field, the spirit stone merchants with a large number of workers had already dug up the entire spiritual field. They began to dig wildly and steal the wealth that belonged to Han Yuanwu. Han Yuanwu gritted his teeth and endured unwillingly. He could only go to Brahma Sky City once a day to find those law enforcement officers. After a month of hard waiting, Han Yuanwu still did not wait for the arrival of the City Lord and the Codex Supervisory Board. When he came to the city again, Han Yuanwu first went to the station of the Codex Supervisory Board. After receiving the news that the supervisors were not there, he hurried to the City Lord's mansion. As soon as he arrived outside the City Lord's mansion, Han Yuanwu was surprised to find that the City Lord was smiling and walking out of the mansion with a man in a supervisor uniform. Han Yuanwu was surprised and immediately stepped forward. "Dear City Lord and Codex Supervisory Board, my interests have been violated. I need your help." Hearing this, The smiles on the faces of the city lord and the Codex Supervisory Board disappeared. Then they asked solemnly, "Tell me exactly what happened." Hearing the two's questions, Han Yuanwu immediately told them what had happened. After listening to Han Yuanwu's description, the city lord nodded solemnly. "I understand this matter. They dare to openly plunder your property. They have violated the rules of the Devil Spine Codex and will be punished." At this moment, the string in Han Yuanwu's heart finally relaxed. He took a deep breath and quickly bowed to the city lord and the Codex Supervisory Board to thank them. This time, Han Yuanwu returned with excitement because he always believed that the Devil Spine Codex and their enforcers would bring him justice. However, after Han Yuanwu left, the city lord and the Codex Supervisory Board captain looked at each other and smiled. That night, Han Yuanwu's house was attacked by a spirit or merchant. All the valuable things in the house were taken away, and the house was burned down by a demonic fire. That night, Han Yuanwu lost everything. Even his wife died in the demonic fire. If it weren't for the protection of a guard, he would have died. With grief and anger, Han Yuanwu once again came to Brahma Sky City. However, the news he received was that the city lord and the Codex Supervisory Board had left together and gone to the strange spirit city. Han Yuanwu realized that something was wrong when he left again at a critical time. However, he had lost everything at this time. The spirit fields were taken away, the mansion was destroyed, and even his wife died in the sea of fire. Han Yuanwu never thought that the Tianyuan stone would not bring him wealth, but a nightmare. At this moment, he thought of his son, the son he had sent to study the Codex Supervisory Board. At this time, Han Yuanwu seemed to have found a life-saving straw. He quickly found a courier station, wrote a letter with the remaining coins on him, and sent it to his son. 5 days later, Han Yuanwu's son, Han Fa, returned. After learning about his father's encounter and the death of his mother, Han Fa was also devastated. He immediately learned the whole story from his father and wrote a complaint. He sued the spirit or merchants and the workers who excavated the spirit or a total of 4,872 people to the Devil Spine Court. After several years of study, Han Fa understood the Devil Spine Codex very well. With all the evidence, he was confident that he could seek justice for himself and his father. In order to ensure that the complaint would arrive safely, the two of them personally went to the Devil Spine City and sent the complaint. Next, they waited for the Devil Spine Court's trial. However, what the father and son did not expect was that the news of the trial did not arrive. Instead, they waited for the city lord to bring him back to the Brahma Sky City on a groundless charge. At this moment, Han Yuanwu had already figured out the crux of the problem. It was obvious that the city lord colluded with the Codex Supervisory Board and those spirit or merchants. Otherwise, how could those spirit or merchants have the courage to plunder his spirit or and burn down his mansion? All of this should have been punished by the Devil Spine Codex. On the way back, Han Yuanwu roared and questioned the city lord about the presence of the notary. However, the city lord smiled disdainfully. "Do you know how valuable the Tianyuan stone is? Not only me, but even the higher-ups have obtained the benefits they deserve. Therefore, no one will protect you at this moment, including the Devil Spine Codex." Hearing this, Han Yuanwu and Han Fa were stunned. They used to believe that the Codex could bring them justice and that they were protected under the rules of the Codex. However, it was only at this moment that they truly understood that the protection brought by the Codex was only relative. Although they were wealthy back then, the benefits they had were not taken seriously by those powerhouses. However, it was completely different this time because he had obtained the Tianyuan stone mine, a resource that even the city lord and the lord of the main city desired. The spirit or merchants that he hated the most were just pawns driven by these hidden greedy people. The ones who really wanted to devour him had always been the law enforcers that he had once believed in. On the night he was detained in the Brahma Sky City prison, Han Yuanwu's son, who had studied the Devil Spine Codex hard and believed that the Devil Spine Codex was justice under his father's influence, committed suicide. This was because his belief had collapsed after knowing the truth. Without the protection of the Devil Spine Codex, they had no chance to choose their own fate. After his son died, Han Yuanwu wailed in grief. He could not believe that the Devil Spine Codex that had brought him wealth and protected his wealth was actually so hypocritical and cruel. Hugging his son's cold body, he cursed the Codex and the law enforcers. At this moment, Han Yuanwu's heart was filled with resentment. After knowing the truth, he had lost everything. His family, wealth, status, everything was gone. Fake, everything was fake. Han Yuanwu screamed and roared, thinking of his son's dispirited and confused eyes before he died. Han Yuanwu clenched his fists tightly. At this moment, he wanted to tear apart the fake codex and then tear apart those hypocritical law enforcers. Why am I so weak? Why can't I even protect my family? If only I could have the power to take revenge. For this, I am willing to be destroyed and fall into endless darkness forever. As long as I can be given power. Han Yuanwu yelled and roared unwillingly, swearing to those ancient gods and devils. He only hoped that some gods and devils would listen to his resentment and give him the power to take revenge. Even if he had to lose everything, he wouldn't hesitate. At this moment, a voice sounded in Han Yuanwu's mind. Do you desire power? Are you willing to sacrifice everything for power and be loyal to me, never to betray me? Chapter 356. The demonic voice echoed in Han Yuanwu's ears, stunning him for a moment. Do you crave power? Are you willing to give up everything for power and be loyal to me, never to betray me? The voice appeared again, impacting Han Yuanwu's nerves. At this moment, Han Yuanwu was terrified. Although he was desperate for the ancient god and demon to hear his cry and grant him great power, it was a different thing to see it with his own eyes. But at this moment, Han Yuanwu looked at his son who was in his arms and tears streamed down his face. I am willing to give up everything for this, even if my soul is destroyed and I fall into endless darkness forever. At this moment, Han Yuanwu's heart was in pain. He was afraid, but he was willing to give up everything for his choice because hatred had already spread from the bottom of his heart. The amount of respect he had for the Devil Spine Codex and the enforcers was now the same amount of hatred. Grief, anger, resentment, and various other emotions tortured him. At this moment, Han Yuanwu used all his strength to shout, I am willing. The other prisoners in the cages all looked at him in surprise. Their faces were filled with ridicule, sympathy, anger, and all sorts of other expressions. In the artifact space, Lu Wu and Bei Li's figures appeared. After hearing Han Yuanwu's shout, Lu Wu knew that the time was right. After choosing the Devil Spine region as the server for the Asia server, Lu Wu had been looking for a suitable entry point. By chance, he had discovered Han Yuanwu and found out what had happened to him. Before officially entering the Devil Spine region, Lu Wu needed a guide like this. His goal was to let the players develop in the Devil Spine region, build up their own power bit by bit, and take over the Devil Spine region. At this moment, Han Yuanwu's desire was to tear up the Devil Spine Codex and destroy the enforcers. Therefore, in Lu Wu's opinion, they wanted the same result. Moreover, as a native of the Devil Spine continent, Han Yuanwu would be of great help to him. What Lu Wu needed to do next was to let Han Yuanwu pave the way for the player's appearance. After shouting his idea hysterically, Han Yuanwu waited quietly for the arrival of the demon god's power. However, nothing happened after a long wait. Han Yuanwu, who had mustered up his courage, suddenly fell to the ground and began to cry. What are you arguing about? Do you want to die? Hearing the commotion inside, the figure of the prison guard appeared at the end of the gate. He strode inside, the iron rod in his hand continuously hitting the metal bars, making bang-bang sounds. When the prisoners saw this, they stopped talking, and Han Yuanwu's cries became clear at this moment. The prison guard immediately quickened his pace and arrived beside Han Yuanwu's cell. He struck the metal bars with a stick in his hand. Shut up. But at this moment, his eyes suddenly stared at the corpse in Han Yuanwu's arms, and he could not help but frown. What bad luck! Why did someone commit suicide again? After saying that, the prison guard took out a key and opened the cell door. He strode in and did not say anything to Han Yuanwu. Instead, he grabbed the dead Han Fa. What are you doing? Han Yuanwu roared in grief and indignation. The prison guard glanced at him coldly and immediately swung the rod in his right hand at Han Yuanwu's head, knocking him to the side. Get lost. After saying that, the prison guard dragged Han Fa's corpse out. After guarding this Brahma prison for so many years, he was already used to death. He even knew why these people committed suicide. Apart from a few murderers who really violated the Magic Spine Codex, everyone else here died because their beliefs collapsed after knowing the truth of the Codex, and they could not accept it. He knew very well that the peace brought by the Codex was only on the surface. In fact, darkness and injustice had always existed. The reason why they were protected by the Codex was that they were not valuable enough for the enforcers to break the Codex treaty. However, when your value made them jealous, the enforcers who held the Codex would not hesitate to devour you. Therefore, he did not ask what happened to Han Fa. He could not even be bothered to care about the crying Han Yuanwu. This was because he had seen it many times, and he was completely numb to it. At this moment, a spatial tunnel suddenly appeared at the cell door, and a pitch-black, 3-meter-tall figure emerged from it. Under the horrified gaze of the prison guard, the figure grabbed his head in one swift motion. Pah! Blood splattered everywhere, and the prison guard's body fell to the ground powerlessly. Wow! The prisoners who were paying attention to this scene also revealed looks of disbelief at this moment. After shaking off the minced meat in his hand, the black figure approached Han Yuanwu step by step, but Han Yuanwu was still sitting on the ground with a dull expression. You need me. The black figure spoke. Who are you? Han Yuanwu slowly turned his head to look at the black figure. Me? Perhaps you can call me the evil demon god. The evil king said after thinking for a while. This mission was ordered by Lu Wu, but of course, he would not use his real identity. After all, he belonged to the European server now, and he could not intervene with his real identity. Hearing the evil king's words, Han Yuanwu's eyes lit up. Did you hear my call? The evil king shook his head. Not me, but the one behind me. He was also the one who sent me here. But don't worry, I have the strength to fulfill your desire. Tell me your request. Hearing the evil king's explanation, hatred emerged in Han Yuanwu's eyes. I want to overthrow the Magic Spine Codex, and I want all the enforcers to die. That's not difficult, but you have to make some sacrifices. Are you ready? The evil king laughed sinisterly. Hearing this, Han Yuanwu slowly stood up and looked up at the evil king. I'm ready. Take whatever you want. The evil king nodded in satisfaction and pressed his hand on Han Yuanwu's head. Suddenly, the information that Bai Li had prepared flowed into his brain. After a while, Han Yuanwu, who had digested the information, raised his head. He could not hide the shock on his face. You want to use me to occupy this big region? Evil king nodded calmly. This is what the person behind me wants, and you are the representative of this region. What you need to do is to rope in those who have the same thoughts as you and want to overthrow Demon Spine Codex. You need to accept my master's will and prepare for the army that will soon arrive. Looking at the shocked Han Yuanwu, the evil king said again, Don't you want to overthrow the Magic Spine Codex? Didn't you want to overthrow the MOG Codex? This is the chance my lord is giving you. Yes, this is what I want. Han Yuanwu clenched his teeth. Then, he murmured and began to recite the soul oath that was imprinted in his mind. Seeing this, the evil king smiled again. He knew that although Han Yuanwu was useful to Lu Wu, it was only temporary. Naturally, he was not qualified to see Lu Wu and Bai Li, so this was enough. After Han Yuanwu finished reciting the soul oath, Han Yuanwu's soul imprint appeared in the artifact space. Seeing this, Lu Wu immediately gave feedback to the evil king. Very good. You should know what to do next. I will help you. This Brahma Sky City is mine. Let's do it. The evil king laughed. Han Yuanwu nodded and squatted down to find the key from the dead prison guard. Then, he walked to the other prison cells. Seeing this, the evil king reached out and put the corpse of Han Yuanwu's son into the channel before following. After a while, Han Yuanwu released all the prisoners here. According to the plan in his mind, he would rope in the prisoners who had the same experience as him, build his own force, and declare war on the Magic Spine Codex and the enforcers. Chapter 357. After being released, the prisoners were originally very grateful to Han Yuanwu. However, when they heard Han Yuanwu say that he wanted to overthrow the code and its enforcers, they all felt that Han Yuanwu was crazy. In their opinion, it was impossible to do so. It was a suicidal move. Even so, there were still a few people who stood up and decided to join Han Yuanwu's team. They wanted to fight, even if they knew that they would fail. That was because those people were like Han Yuanwu. After the collapse of their faith, there was only resentment and anger in their hearts. They had already lost everything. What was the harm in dying if they died? Han Yuanwu did not stop those who were unwilling. He let them leave. The information in his mind told him that the demon god behind the scenes wanted followers who were truly willing to overthrow the Devil Spine Code and the enforcers. As they walked out of the prison, Han Yuanwu and the others encountered several waves of prison guards. However, in the face of the evil king's powerful strength, these guards did not have any strength to resist and were easily dealt with. After walking out of the prison, Han Yuanwu turned to face the 13 people who were willing to follow him and said, "I need you to do something now. Just say it. This old man's life is worthless. They ruined my family, so I could do anything as long as I can bite off a piece of meat from their bodies." The one who spoke was a white-haired, white-bearded, and ragged old man. The others immediately responded when they heard this. In fact, in their opinion, Han Yuanwu's action this time was bound to end in failure, because overthrowing the existing order was easier said than done. The hope was too slim. However, they still chose to follow Han Yuanwu because they were already determined to die. They just wanted to leave a wound on this giant beast, even if it was a trivial injury. Split up and go to various cities to deliver a message. "What message?" the old man asked. "All those who want to overthrow this hypocritical code and end these enforcers can come to Brahma Sky City. From today onwards, the Devil Spine Code Treaty will be abolished and the enforcers will be deprived of their power. It will be a true land of freedom and resistance." Hearing this, these followers were stunned. They originally thought that Han Yuanwu would find a hiding place and secretly gather his strength. They did not expect him to say such words. This time, they all felt that Han Yuanwu was crazy. "Believe me, after today, Brahma Sky City will be the gathering place for us rebels, so we need more people who have the same idea as us to join." Hearing Han Yuanwu say that he would take down Brahma Sky City today and make it a gathering place for their resistance, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. "I know you don't believe me. How about this? Follow me. I think you'll believe me after you see it with your own eyes." Han Yuanwu turned around and walked toward the city lord's mansion. The rest of them looked at each other and followed after him. Dressed in the clothes of prisoners, they appeared on the streets and immediately attracted the attention of the residents. They all gave way, clearly not wanting to get into trouble. Some residents even hurriedly ran toward the codex inspectors, wanting to report the prisoners' prison break. Nothing unexpected happened along the way, but when they arrived at the entrance of the city lord's mansion, a group of codex inspectors and a large number of city soldiers appeared behind them. "How dare you all break out of prison? Do you still have any respect for the codex?" The leader of the codex inspectors looked at Han Yuanwu and the others and rebuked. Hearing this, Han Yuanwu only wanted to laugh. "What bullish asterisk T is the codex?" Han Yuanwu turned around and looked at the codex inspector, his expression full of disdain. Hearing this, whether it was the codex inspectors or the soldiers, there was an uproar. They had lived for so long, but this was the first time they had encountered someone like Han Yuanwu who dared to openly provoke the Devil Spine Codex. "You're courting death. Arrest them all and try them according to the law." When the soldiers heard this, they immediately stepped forward to arrest them. When the followers around Han Yuanwu saw this, they looked nervous and clenched their fists. "Try them according to the law?" I said, "The codex is bullish asterisk T. It has no right to judge us." As Han Yuanwu's voice fell, a thick black fog emerged from his body and slowly formed a 3-meter-tall black giant in front of him. "Roar!" The moment the evil king appeared, he roared forward. Suddenly, all the soldiers were sent flying by the huge sound wave. "So you have some ability, but if you want to challenge the Codex, you will regret it. Several Codex inspectors saw this and attacked at the same time. Spells of different attributes streaked across the air and headed towards Han Yuanwu. At this moment, the evil king waved his right arm, and a blood-red claw formed in the air. It instantly shattered the oncoming spells and did not lose its momentum. It even tore the bodies of the Codex inspectors apart. What a joke. The underworld has established the law of order. It's a pity that I can't stay here for long. Otherwise, I really want to personally kill all these hypocrites. Hee hee. After eliminating all the enemies, the evil king could not help but laugh. Seeing the evil king easily kill the soldiers and Codex inspectors, the followers were dumbfounded. Although they were surprised when they saw the evil king kill the prison guards, they did not think much of it. After all, the prison guard were not strong, but the Codex inspectors were extremely strong, especially the leader, who obviously had the strength of a ghost commander, but he died so easily. They were already shocked, speechless. At the same time, they were inexplicably excited, especially when they saw the death of the inspector who represented the Codex. Lord Evil Devil God, let's begin, Han Yuanwu said respectfully. The evil king nodded indifferently. Then, he stretched out his hand and waved it forward. A violent wind suddenly formed and swept forward. The entire City Lord's mansion began to peel off bit by bit in the raging wind. It only lasted for a moment before it was pulled out of the ground and twisted into powder in the air. At this moment, a figure shot out from the wind and floated in the air with a ferocious expression. Who are you? How dare you destroy the City Lord's mansion? Do you really ignore the existence of the Codex? Do you still remember me? Han Yuanwu looked up at the Brahma Sky City Lord who was floating in the air. It's you. Brahma Sky's expression froze. He had just parted with Han Yuanwu not long ago. How could he forget this person? How hypocritical. You keep talking about the Codex. It's disgusting. Han Yuanwu's eyes flashed with anger as he gritted his teeth. How dare you? As a prisoner, you dare to break out of prison. According to the Codex, you deserve to die. I realize that you're even more annoying than Yuan Xiu. Looking at the Brahma Sky City Lord, the evil king could not help but mock him. At that moment, several figures appeared from within the city and quickly appeared beside the City Lord. City Lord, what happened here? The leading Codex supervisory captain looked at Brahma Sky and asked. The prisoner broke out of prison. Brahma Sky replied immediately. Hearing this, the Codex supervisory captain looked at Han Yuanwu and the others with a surprised expression on his face. He was very familiar with these people. He had personally sent them to prison according to the Codex regulations. He had harvested a lot of various resources from them. Thinking of this, the Codex supervisory captain could not help but smile. So it's a prison break. Then let's deal with it according to the Codex regulations. Then he looked at the pitch-black giant that the evil king had transformed into. His smile gradually froze because he realized that he could not see through this person's cultivation. Friend, they are prisoners. You can't make mistakes like them. According to the Codex regulations, you will be punished for doing this. I advise you, before the supervisory captain could finish his words, the evil king raised his hand and grabbed. A subordinate beside him was sucked into the evil king's hand. Is murder against the law? The evil king asked with a sinister smile. Seeing this, the Codex supervisory captain's heart tightened. However, the evil king did not wait for him to answer. With a crack, the body of the supervisory captain in his hand was turned into mud. Then he spoke again. Is destruction against the law? This time, the evil king did not wait for him to answer. He waved his fist in the distance, and several houses were blown away. What else can violate your devil spine codex? Tell me, I will show you one by one. The evil king replied with a sinister smile. Such provocative words shocked the city lord and the codex supervisory captain. Because they could not see through the evil king's strength, they were prepared to persuade him not to use force. However, it was clear that the evil king did not want to give them face. Immediately, their expressions turned gloomy. Friend, do you want to be jointly wanted by all the forces in the Devil Spine region? Even if you are strong, you should know your limits. What bullshit asterisk T wanted? In my eyes, you are nothing. And your Devil Spine prefect is also an idiot. The evil king's words shocked everyone present. They had seen arrogant people before, but they had never seen someone as arrogant as the evil king. He actually dared to insult one of the codex enforcers and prefect. He was truly audacious. The city lord said coldly, "Since you want to die, then don't blame us." Then the two of them stretched out their hands and began to form a seal. They mobilized the power of heaven and earth and prepared to kill the evil king with lightning speed. In their opinion, no matter how strong the evil king was, he was only at the Ghost King initial stage. His strength was similar to theirs. As long as they joined forces, it would not be a problem to capture the evil king. Seeing them attack, the evil king could not help but laugh. Although he was at the Ghost Emperor realm, he had a divine body with a divine seal. Coupled with the support of the laws, he had the strength to rival Ain God. He could easily kill the two of them. However, he did not do so because he wanted to build momentum for Han Yuanwu and pave the way for the upcoming Asian server players. Naturally, he had to show off. Thinking of this, the evil king raised his head with a sinister smile. "Hey, do you two know who I am? I don't care who you are. You deserve to die for violating the Devil's Spine Codex." As he spoke, two formations, one red and one blue, pressed down from the sky. Smack! The evil king held up the two formations with one hand. Under the shocked gazes of the Brahma Sky City Lord and the supervisory captain, the formations exploded into light spots filled the sky. "I'll wait for you to kneel down and beg for mercy." As he spoke, the evil king's body began to expand as if it was inflated. The muscles on his body became prominent, and his veins protruded. The surface of his muscular dragon body was also flashing with a dark light. In the blink of an eye, the evil king turned into a giant nearly 30 meters tall. As the evil king released his power, the purple, burning divine seal on his forehead began to appear bit by bit. 5 stripes of the laws began to circle around his body. At this moment, the Brahma Sky City Lord and the supervisory captain of the Codex Enforcers were dumbfounded. They could not help but reveal a look of horror on their faces. God! God! Chapter 358. After completely releasing his power, the evil king's body was still growing. The burning purple divine seal and the power of the law circling around his body all proved that the evil king was a god on the underworld god list. At this time, the bodies of Brahma Sky City Lord and the supervisory captain of the Codex kept trembling. They looked at the evil king in horror and were completely speechless. They couldn't believe that they had just provoked a god and even used the Devil's Spine Codex to scare him. The creators of the Codex were only in the Ghost Emperor realm. At this moment, they were afraid. The fear in their eyes seemed to spread, and their bodies couldn't help but tremble under the emotional fluctuations. The clouds in the sky were low, and the wind was howling. A golden light fell from the sky and enveloped the evil king, making him look incomparably majestic. The burning divine seal was even more distinct at this moment. The evil king's power was still expanding. At this moment, he was already 100 meters tall, like an indomitable ancient demon god. The breathtaking aura on his body made the people in the city couldn't help but kneel on the ground and shiver. As a god, the evil king's life level was far from what Brahma Sky and the supervisory captain could compare with. Under the pressure of the evil king's aura, they fell from the sky and knelt on the ground with ashen faces. They were very clear about the consequences of offending a god. On this Devil's Spine continent, there were many races cursed by gods. They all endured endless pain and couldn't seek death. Even thinking about this kind of torture made them shudder. Looking at the evil king, whose body was shrouded in golden light, they couldn't help but think of what the evil king had just said. "In my eyes, you are nothing." At this time, the evil king looked at them with a grim smile. A terrifying pressure formed in an instant. Their backs were involuntarily pressed down, and they bent over on the ground in a sorry state. I said, "I want you to kneel and beg for mercy. God above, we didn't mean to offend you. I hope the gods can forgive us." Resisting the evil king's oppression with all their might, the Brahma Sky City Lord and the supervisory captain's faces were ashen. They knelt on the ground and begged the evil king for mercy. Look around, the evil king said with a grim smile. When the two of them heard this, they looked around and immediately found that all the buildings in the area they were in had been destroyed and overturned by the howling wind. What is the crime of destroying buildings in the city according to your devil spine code? When they heard Evil King's question, Brahma and the captain of the supervisors panicked, and they quickly spoke in unison. God above, you are an existence that has transcended the restrictions of the laws. How can this devil spine codex restrict you? Ha! What a joke. He established the code of laws in this world, but he himself is doing things that transcend the code of laws. In the end, it still depends on strength. How interesting. Diablo's voice was like thunder exploding in their ears, but they did not dare to resist. They knew how lowly they were in front of God. God, please forgive us for our sins. We are willing to serve you as slaves. The two of them prostrated themselves on the ground and waited for Evil King's reply. Their hearts were filled with anxiety. At this moment, they knew that their survival was not up to them. Everything depended on whether the Evil King was willing to let them go. The Evil King's heart was filled with disdain when he saw their lowly appearance. In his opinion, this Devil Spine region was really fake. The rulers were all hypocrites, which made him feel disgusted. In comparison, the Evil King preferred the European server where he was located. The players in Yuanshu had always fought each other if they disagreed with each other. This was what the real underworld should be like. The law of the jungle was the essence. Therefore, the Evil King was extremely unhappy with the people who made these rules. He even wanted to smash His Excellency Devil Spine's head. However, when he thought of Lu Wu's instructions, the Evil King gave up on this idea. The most important thing now was to make sufficient preparations for the arrival of the Asian server players. God, please forgive us for our sins. We are willing to serve you as slaves. When the Evil King did not reply, the two of them prostrated themselves on the ground, spoke again. Seeing the attitude of the Brahma Sky City Master and the supervising captain, Han Yuanwu and the others were indescribably happy, especially the few people who followed Han Yuanwu. After knowing that the Evil King was a god, they also knelt on the ground and lowered their heads to the Evil King. The gods had always been hidden from the world and did not care about the affairs of the world. In their hearts, the most supreme being was none other than His Excellency. The gods were illusory existences that they wanted to look up to but could not see. At this moment, they were inexplicably excited because Han Yuanwu had the help of the gods. Therefore, what he said before about building a city that overthrew the existing order was definitely feasible. Slaves and servants? Are you worthy? In the Evil King's opinion, being his servants was equivalent to joining Lu Wu's team. Moreover, he was only Lu Wu's servant. How could they be worthy? Thinking of this, the Evil King suddenly moved. The rule stripes on the surface of his body spread, and the sky suddenly changed. A black lightning fell from the sky and hit the surface of the Evil King's body. At this time, a black rule left his body and suddenly passed through the bodies of the Brahma Sky City Master and the supervising captain. Then, it returned to the Evil King's side and continued to slowly revolve around the Evil King along with the other four rules. A gust of wind blew, and the bodies of the Brahma Sky City Master and the supervising captain, who still had a look of horror on their faces, dissipated with the wind. These two powerhouses who had just reached the Ghost King realm, who represented the incarnation of the Devil Spine Code in the hearts of the Brahma Sky City residents, disappeared at this moment. Seeing this scene, Han Yuanwu and others couldn't help but clench their fists, because it was these two people who caused the destruction of their families and the loss of everything. Seeing them die, they felt carefree at this moment. Let's begin. The Evil King turned his head and looked at Han Yuanwu. Hearing this, Han Yuanwu nodded heavily. His body slowly floated in the air under the support of the Evil King's power. Looking at the Brahma Sky City below, Han Yuanwu took a deep breath and his expression became firm. Then he said, "From today onwards, this city will be renamed Freedom City and officially declare war on the Devil Spine Code and the law enforcement officers. From now on, the Demon God Army will fight for us. We welcome all resistance." With the help of the Evil King, Han Yuanwu's voice spread throughout the Brahma Sky City and echoed for a long time. Countless residents showed a look of horror. After Han Yuanwu said all this, the evil devil god pointed to the sky with one finger. Today, we will build the Demon God channel. From now on, the Demon God army will help you overthrow the law enforcement officers and tear up the Devil Spine Code. Following the direction that the evil devil god pointed, a golden beam of light pierced through the sky and crashed to the ground. Countless strange and distorted symbols began to appear on the ground, building this formation bit by bit. When the golden light dissipated, a huge formation diagram appeared in the area where the Brahma Sky City Master Mansion was located. The evil king glanced at Han Yuanwu and said, "Wait, the Demon God army will come." "Thank you, Lord Evil Devil God." Han Yuanwu was excited and bowed in the air. "You're welcome. You already know what to do. If everything you do can satisfy my lord, your son may be able to come back to life." After saying this, the evil devil god's figure turned into a cloud of black fog and dissipated on the spot. Only Han Yuanwu and his followers, who were still in shock, were left behind. His son could be resurrected? At this moment, Han Yuanwu believed everything that the evil king said was true. Because he was a god, the existence behind him must be an existence that was even more untouchable. How difficult would it be to resurrect a dead person? Chapter 359. With the help of the evil king, the resurrection point of the Asia server was marked. Moreover, the power displayed by the evil king shocked the residents of Brahma Sky City. Most of the residents chose to flee the city after the disappearance of the evil king because they had never experienced what happened to Han Yuanwu. In their hearts, the Devil Spine Codex was still sacred and inviolable and should not be destroyed. Therefore, they did not want to resist. In their eyes, Brahma Sky City had become a devil's den. Staying here would only mean death. However, this was exactly what Lu Wu wanted to see. He needed rebels like Han Yuanwu who had the determination to overthrow the existing order, not residents who still had the Devil Spine Codex in their hearts. With the presence of natives like Han Yuanwu, the arrival of the players would not be regarded as an invasion. They would only be regarded as an army that Han Yuanwu had borrowed from the gods. By then, the residents of Brahma Sky City who had fled the city would spread the news to the entire Devil Spine continent. More rebels like Han Yuanwu would join in. This was the main model of the Asia server that Lu Wu had planned. The natives and the players would work together to resist until the Devil Spine Codex and the law enforcers were overthrown. At the same time, Wu Guoyi's team was ready. After receiving the news that Lu Wu was going to open the Asia server, they began to spend a lot of money to publicize it. Players from Japan, Korea, Singapore, and other countries could not help but cheer when they heard the news. They had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Since the global network was now fully interconnected, as long as one was a veteran player, they would have access to Battle Online's game videos and evaluation reports. However, there was no news of Battle Online launching the Asia server. This made many Asian players who could not stand the wait dissatisfied and began to protest. They even requested to open up the local server and turn it into the Asia server. However, no matter how hard they tried, the Battle Online official did not respond. There was no doubt that there was resentment in their hearts. For this reason, some game enthusiasts even went to the countries where the original server, the European server, and an Araka server were located just to experience the charm of Battle Online. However, it was different this time because Battle Online was going to be launched in the Asia server. They would have their own server. While many Asian players and other servers were cheering, they also had the idea of switching back to the Asia server. After all, the Asia server was their real home. On Lu Wu's side, in order to cooperate with Wu Guoyi's promotion, he had also opened the official website and forum of the Asia server. Suddenly, a large number of players flooded in, and the entire forum was bustling with activity. However, something caught Lu Wu's attention during this period. This was because a group of fake reviewers had swarmed into the Asia server forum. What they did on the Asia server forum was to post all sorts of comments on the shortcomings of Battle Online, and even to malign the team behind the game. Lu Wu decisively sent the almighty Bei Li to investigate the matter. After some investigation, Lu Wu found out the reason. It turned out that everything was caused by Battle Online's sudden decision to launch on the Asia server. During this time, there was a very influential game company called Mechanical Revolution that wanted to launch their new game, and the launch was set to be all over Asia. While Battle Online had yet to release the announcement of the Asia server's launch, their new game, Mechanical Revolution, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, was undoubtedly the most anticipated game by the Asia server players. However, Battle Online's sudden decision to launch on the Asia server caught the manufacturers of Mechanical Revolution off guard. Many players who had already reserved the game and were ready to purchase it canceled their subscriptions one after another, and the company's market value had evaporated by 24% in just a few days. Under such circumstances, the manufacturers of Mechanical Revolution decided to postpone the launch of the game to prevent losses. This was because they clearly knew that they would definitely lose badly if they were to go head-to-head with Battle Online, a phenomenal game that was popular all over the world. Hence, they could only choose to postpone the launch of the game. However, this had caused dissatisfaction among some players. This was because these players had been following Mechanical Revolution since the first game. Now that they had waited so long for the release of Mechanical Revolution 3, they could not accept the sudden announcement of postponement. After knowing the reason for the postponement of Mechanical Revolution, they had nowhere to vent their anger, so they targeted Battle Online. Although they had never played this game before and did not even understand the content of this game, they did not care. They gathered together and began to defame Battle Online on the forum, and even announced that they would boycott the release of Battle Online. These players were commonly known as die-hard fans. When they thought that a game was fun, they would think that everyone who played this game had the same taste as them, and that all other games were rubbish. Even if they did not know the specific content of this game, they knew that it could not be compared to the games they liked. After knowing the specific reason, Lu Wu did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not even bother to delete the post, and just let them scold him on the forum. Lu Wu knew a lot about the Mechanical Revolution series of games. This series of games could be said to be very well known around the world. Every sequel was a great improvement, and it was a very good game. Lu Wu had been addicted to it for a period of time. Hence, he could understand why there would be such a group of die-hard fans in Mechanical Revolution. However, since this matter had nothing to do with the manufacturers of Mechanical Revolution, he naturally would not intervene. As for those players who were scolding him on the forum, he did not care at all. After all, in the face of absolute strength, they could not change the truth no matter what they said. However, the development of the situation quickly changed, which was also unexpected for Lu Wu. The cause was still in the Asia server forum. Due to the existence of such a group of ghostwriters, many players who sincerely liked Battle Online could not stand it anymore. One after another, they began to scold them. In the beginning, it was still alright. The ghostwriters and Battle Online players were just bickering with each other. However, because the number of Battle Online players was too large, the ghostwriters could not fight back at all. In the end, they opened a declaration of war on the forum. Frowny face. What's there to be proud of? Does having a large number of people make the game fun? I told you that this game is rubbish, so what? Pick a place to fight. Do you dare? Original poster. The developer of Battle Online is a pig. Content, come. It's so boring to talk. You have a lot of Battle Online players, right? Do you dare to pick a place to fight? Let's have a real fight. Now that we have gathered 1,000 people, you guys should also send out 1,000 people. Let's have a real fight. Let's set the location at Osaka, Japan. Battle Online's rubbish. Come if you have the guts, but if you don't, then forget it. This post shocked the players who were fighting in various servers. Watermelon_Taro. Oh my god, you guys want to compete with Battle Online's players in terms of physical strength? Laughing emoji. Dark Vagabond. European server. How dare you guys compete with Battle Online's players in terms of physical strength? Don't you know how many wars we've been through? Laughing emoji. Lava. Hell. To be honest, you guys should really play Battle Online. You won't say this after you play. The actual combat ability of the players here is off the charts, especially the original and European servers. It said that most of the players in those two servers have studied PK techniques in depth. Laughing emoji, Shuali underscore the underscore strongest. 666, the bosses of the mechanical revolution. You guys are probably leeches. A real PK? I suspect that you guys are trying to cheat us of our medical fees. How shameless. Laughing emoji. Crayon underscore Shinchan replied to Shuali underscore the underscore strongest. Nonsense, I've already seen through everything. They want to cheat us of our compensation for the deaths. We battle online players have fought hard on the battlefield. Who knows, we might kill each other in the heat of the moment. Laughing emoji. Roasting underscore Jade underscore hair underscore, while underscore roasting underscore Chong. That's too scary. After hearing what you guys said, I'm terrified. They want to cheat us of a huge sum of money with the lives of 1,000 players. Society, we can't afford to offend them. Laughing emoji, assassin underscore creed. But if we don't go, will they look down on us? This won't do either. Everyone, think of a way. Devil underscore signs. Europe, we have to teach them a lesson. I've signed up. When the time comes, I'll take a plane over. It's time to show off my strength. Extreme Wolf Ghost King Sly. JPG, invincible underscore loneliness. Can you guys stop fooling around? I'm not joking. You guys know how strong the players are in terms of actual combat ability. You'll definitely get into trouble if you challenge them. Just let them go and let them continue. Battle Online is trash. Asia replied to invincible underscore loneliness. If you don't dare, then don't. Don't find excuses. Crayon underscore Shinchan. Look, Boss Ancient. They even dared to provoke you. How about this? Let's send a team of life players over. This way, the casualties will be minimized. Laughing emoji. Sucking underscore stars underscore great underscore spell replied to Crayon underscore Shinchan. You stubborn bastard. I suddenly think what you said makes sense. After the players of Mechanical Revolution left their declaration of war, the entire Asia server forum became unusually noisy. Players from all three major servers came to the forum upon hearing the news. The players burst into laughter at this provocation. In fact, the strength of Battle Online's players in actual combat had been proven many times in real life. Moreover, there were often players who posted on the forum about how they had become very strong in real life after fighting so many times in the game. For example, there was a player who stood up for his friend and challenged a Taekwondo expert. Then, he easily dodged the attack by following the rhythm of his shadow steps. Another example was a player who encountered a robber while walking at night. In the end, he subdued the robber with his bare hands. Wait a minute. This series of incidents had long made the players of Battle Online understand that although the skills in the game could not be used in real life, many combat skills could be imitated and used. Moreover, in the continuous battles, many players had already integrated some of the combat skills they learned in the game into their own bodies. They would subconsciously use them when they were in danger. Therefore, in the eyes of all the players in Battle Online, the provocation of the players of Mechanical Revolution was simply a sign that they were not afraid of death. However, since the provocation had already come knocking on their door, many of the hot-tempered players could no longer sit still. They immediately posted on the forum and started to recruit people. They were ready to fly to Japan to show off their muscles. As soon as the challenge post was posted, tens of thousands of players flooded in to sign up in just 5 minutes. Moreover, the number of people signing up was still increasing. For these players, Battle Online was no longer just a game. It was also their home and their belief. They could no longer tolerate such provocation, so they decided to take action. As for the injuries and whatnot, they could only say that they would try their best to hold back. After all, if they did not accept the challenge and teach those arrogant dogs a lesson, they were really afraid that these arrogant dogs would treat them as fat otakus who only knew how to play games. Although many players of Battle Online admitted that they were fat otakus, they were still fat otakus with extremely strong combat skills. Chapter 360. Lu Wu was having a headache over the reaction of the Battle Alliance players towards the fake reviewers in the Asia server forum. This was because they were really going to fight in real life. Naturally, Lu Wu had to put a stop to this. Hence, he created an official notice. Official notice. Regarding the fight in the Asia server forum, original poster, Battle Alliance Planning Group content. After understanding the details of the fight in the forum of the Asia server, we would like to ask all the players to remain calm and not let their emotions affect their decisions. The development team has full confidence in the development of Battle Online. Their slander and insults will not have any impact on the game. At the same time, we would like to thank all the Battle Online players for their trust and support in this game. Message from the planning group. Take a step back and you'll see the world. Endure for a moment, fight for a moment, and cry after the fight. Message from the gaming group. To thank the players for their support of this game, we will hold a celebration for the whole day before the Battle Alliance Asia server goes online. The EXP gained from leveling up on that day will be increased by 10%. In order to stop the players from fighting, Lu Wu endured the pain and decided to release the EXP gained on the day of the fight so that the players would not act rashly. However, Lu Wu had completely miscalculated this time because some of the words of the Mechanical Revolution players had crossed the bottom line of the Battle Alliance players. Crayon_Shinchan. Take a step back and you'll see the world. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. I want to fight 10 of them. /salted_fish. Fight for a moment. Fight for a moment. If we don't *CK them up, they will definitely clamor, even louder, and refuse to accept the official suggestion. Wandering_scenery_party. You want to stop us with just 10% EXP? Behind the scenes group, you are too naive. We will fight this fight, and no one could stop us. Irascible_berserker. The officials can't back down. I know you are thinking for us, but we are also thinking for the game. This fight must be fought, and we will show mercy. Roasting_jade_rabbit_ while _hugging_chung. We have already formed dozens of groups and are discussing which 1,000 people to send. After all, they said 1,000 people. We won't use numbers to pressure them. Watermelon_taro. Although we Battle Alliance players love to read and are well-mannered players, we will not back down if they try to bully us. I've already signed up. I want to go to Japan. Sword Riding Fairy. I heard that Master Ao Jin also wanted to go. He actually joined our group for a fight, but he was immediately kicked out by our group leader. I'm afraid that he won't hold back. We're going to reason with our fists, not to collect corpses. Laughing emoji. Ao Family Sword Technique replied to Riding Sword Immortal. Black ? Face. Crayon_Shinchan replied to Ao Jin Swordplay. You were kicked out of the group chat because of your aggressive words. Laughing emoji. Martial Arts Behemoth. We're screening who to send. The list of names will be out soon. Everyone, please look forward to it. I heard that Boss Gu Yu is paying for the return tickets. The popularity of the duel continued to rise. Players from all 3 servers had gathered together, and Lu Wu's reward for the event had obviously lost its allure. This gave Lu Wu a headache. He simply created a Smuff account and joined the group chat to find out what they were talking about. This time, Lu Wu joined the main group. A few guild bosses were planning how to fight this battle. In fact, they also understood that it was not difficult to win this battle. The difficult part was how to prevent any problems from happening. After all, it was a group fight of 1,000 people. This was not a joke. Problems could easily arise in the chaos. As guild leaders, they were more meticulous in their considerations. Naturally, this aspect was what they were most concerned about. After half a day, they finally came up with a countermeasure and made a list. Looking at the list, Lu Wu was dumbfounded. The division of labor of these players who participated in the duel was extremely clear. This was because the leaders of these organizations mainly recruited players who were doctors in real life. There were more than 500 people on the list who were experienced in medical treatment, resuscitation, and medical care. Their role was to quickly deal with the scene after the fight and ensure the safety of their opponents. There were 100 people who studied law in order to prepare for legal problems in other countries. There were also 97 people who were there to watch. Their role was to decisively stop their own players when they saw that the opposing players were in danger. There were also 3 people who were responsible for live streaming and uploading to the forum. Therefore, only 300 players were truly participating in the battle. For this duel, 600 people were allocated for the main server, 200 for the European server, and 200 for the Naraka server. This allocation also caused protests from the European server and the Naraka server, especially the Russian players in some regions of the European server. They were extremely concerned about this matter. They wanted to put on a show of White Emperor's sacred sword, follow me on a sword. Therefore, they were really dissatisfied with this allocation. You can search on Bilibili, White Emperor's sacred sword, follow me on a sword. There's a video. Regarding this, Gu Yu and the others gave an explanation. They said that the main server was closer to the duel, so they did not have to trouble themselves to come all the way here. In the future, if there was such a situation in Europe and North America, they could go and fight. The main server would not fight for the spots. In order to ensure that there would be no problems in this duel, they divided the list in detail. Each player's role was clearly indicated. This really made Lu Wu dumbfounded. Were all duels so formal nowadays? After the list was released, the forums of the three main servers were bustling with activity. Many players were upset that they were not selected. There were also many players who sent their blessings to the players who were preparing for the battle. In short, the players were full of confidence for this battle. They wanted to see how the battle players would defeat the Internet Water Army. Within 3 days, the players on the list were arranged by Gu Yu and the others to gather in the country and fly to Japan. On the other hand, the Mechanical Revolution players from Japan, Korea, Singapore, and other regions also began to gather and fly to Japan. It could be said that the offline duel between the players could no longer be stopped. Lu Wu, almost King, called the police about this. However, after thinking about it, he did not do so. Instead, he sent Mu Zhiguang, who had just been modified, to observe the duel. If anything went wrong, he could stop it on the spot. After arriving in Japan, the battle players first rested for the night under the arrangement of Gu Yu and the others. The next morning, the players headed to the suburbs where the duel was arranged. Regarding this duel, the battle players did not feel pressured at all. After all, they had experienced such a big scene like war. How could they not handle a simple duel? The duel location was in the West District of Osaka. It was a sparsely populated suburb. According to the location provided by the Mechanical Revolution players, the 1,000-man team of battle players soon arrived. When they looked up, they found that the densely packed Mechanical Revolution players were already ready. However, what baffled the Battle Alliance players was the fact that they had brought along weapons such as baseball bats and iron rods. Basically, every one of them had one. The battle players could not help but look at each other, realizing that they were all unarmed. Through the live stream, the players of Battle Alliance were in an uproar in the forum. They were mocking the opponent for bringing tools to a fight. All the players of Battle Online are here. You can fight however you want. Gu Yu took a few steps forward and said while looking at the densely packed crowd in front of him, Yuji Wu Yanhua Iwu, Chu Yanhua Iwu Iwua, the Wu Yanhua, the Yanhua, though Gu Yu could not understand what he was saying. He could sense the provocation in his tone. He could not help but laugh. Then let's begin. As soon as Gu Yu's voice fell, the Battle Alliance players began to line up according to the previous arrangement. The first 300 players were the combatants. The players of Mechanical Revolution also began to warm up. Since they could not speak the same language, they did not waste time talking. After warming up for a while, the Battle Alliance players took the lead. The first 300 players immediately rushed toward the 1,000 players while the rest of the medics quickly followed behind. Seeing that the Battle Alliance players were attacking, the players of Mechanical Revolution also waved their bats and rushed toward the Battle Alliance players. This time, the players of Mechanical Revolution were full of confidence because they were already well prepared. Defeating these Battle Alliance players was not a problem at all. However, the truth was always unexpected. Since the first 300 players were all warrior-type players, they were very familiar with the collision during a charge. They immediately lifted their feet and kicked forward in unison, knocking over a group of players of Mechanical Revolution. They were most familiar with fighting, especially the Rune Masters players who were good at fighting with their fists. While kicking over the enemies, they began to pursue the victorious players. They stepped forward and kicked the players who had fallen to the ground. In the first wave of contact, the Battle Alliance players could be said to have an absolute advantage and began to push forward. The combat skills of the players on both sides were not on the same level at all. Even though they were armed, they were still no match for the experienced Battle Alliance players. In the battle of thousands against thousands, the Battle Alliance players were completely overwhelming. Groups of players of Mechanical Revolution were beaten to the ground and wailed in pain. Seeing this scene, the players who were watching the live broadcast on the forum were extremely excited. Damn, brother over there, take it easy. Those people are not monsters. Don't hit their vital points, stay steady. The European server brother on the left in white. How can you be so careless? Don't kick the other side's D*CK. 666. One wave of destruction. Our great Battle Alliance is invincible in the universe. While the players in the live broadcast were discussing, the players who participated in the battle had penetrated the entire team of players of Mechanical Revolution in less than 5 minutes. This was only done by 300 people while the rest of the players were watching the battle. However, the Battle Alliance players did not stop there. They turned around and continued to slaughter the players of Mechanical Revolution. At this moment, a large group of people suddenly appeared around them. They raised their weapons and shouted as they charged towards the Battle Alliance players. F***CK, they're playing dirty, a bunch of trash. Seeing that there were still people lying in ambush on the other side, the Battle Alliance players were completely enraged. A few Russian players even tore off their clothes and rushed toward the other side while beating their chests. Faced with a siege, the medical personnel who were watching the battle could not sit still and joined in the battle. At this moment, the Battle Alliance players' first battle to make a name for themselves in reality was about to come when they were faced with a number of people several times their own. 1 against 3 or even 5 people, the warrior players' punches landed on their faces while the assassin players' nimble dodges were on full display at this moment. Eat my earth-shattering punch. After dodging an attack, a warrior player turned around and punched a Mechanical Revolution player who was about to ambush him. Idiot, eat my backstab punch. An assassin player jumped up and punched the back of a Mechanical Revolution player's neck, knocking him out. Maien's soldier summoning. Forget it, eat my backstab punch. A wizard player said, Idiot on the other side, eat my rising dragon fist. Ow. Holy body charge. While they were fighting, the players habitually shouted the names of their moves, which made them look especially Chinibu. However, their combat strength was incomparably strong. 1,000 versus 5,000, it was a crushing advance. The Battle Alliance players were beating the Mechanical Revolution players until they covered their heads and fled. A few Mechanical Revolution players were so scared that they threw their weapons and ran away. At this moment, the Battle Alliance players were fighting with their blood boiling. How could they let them leave just like that? A few warrior players rushed over and kicked a few more Mechanical Revolution players. The Mechanical Revolution players who had no combat experience were beaten senseless at this moment. They fell to the ground in droves and fled like rats. The players behind them saw this scene, and their legs turned to jelly. Surrender. We surrender. A certain Mechanical Revolution player shouted in broken Mandarin. Surrender your ass. This player was slapped to the ground by a warrior player on the spot. At this moment, the Battle Alliance players would not accept any surrender. They were the ones who initiated the fight, and they had endured it for a long time due to their passion for Battle Online. Moreover, the other party was playing dirty this time. How could they stop if they did not vent their anger? The Battle Alliance players were getting more and more ferocious, while the Mechanical Revolution players were completely dumbfounded. A few of them did not even know what to do and stood rooted to the ground. The Battle Alliance players showed no mercy to this group of people as they were hammered to the ground one by one. In less than 20 minutes, the 5,000-man team of Mechanical Revolution players was completely defeated. However, many of the Battle Alliance players were already in a frenzy and could not stop. Faced with such a situation, the medics and players who were trying to stop the fight quickly stepped forward and started pulling people away. The scene was chaotic. All the Mechanical Revolution players were lying on the ground with their hands on their heads, while the Battle Alliance players were pulling and persuading each other. Brother, calm down. Do you really want to kill people? Brother, it's about time. They have all surrendered. Don't be rash. It's over. Stop fighting. That bastard is really going to be beaten to death by you. Someone come quickly. This brother from a European server is F***king crazy. Help pull him back. Brother, I know that we, the Battle Alliance players, are the strongest, and they are no match for us. But you have to control your strength too. Fortunately, the guild leaders who organized the fight had already predicted what would happen. With the help of the other players, the hot-tempered players were finally controlled. After a brief silence, Guyu stretched out his hands. Brothers, Battle Alliance is the strongest. Roar! At this moment, the players in the forum, live stream, and the live audience cheered. The surrounding Mechanical Revolution players were lying on the ground and did not dare to get up. They were afraid that they would be beaten up again if they stood up. At this moment, they were feeling bitter. They thought that they would be able to win this fight no matter what, since they had prepared their weapons and ambushed their players. They would then be able to vent their anger at the delayed release of Mechanical Revolution. However, they did not expect these Battle Alliance players to be so ferocious and cruel as if they had cheated. They were completely dumbfounded. They even suspected that some of the Battle Alliance players would have killed them if someone had not stopped the fight at the end. These people are all combat instructors, right? How can we fight against them? The Mechanical Revolution players who were lying on the ground felt like they had suffered a 10,000-ton critical hit to their hearts. They continued to curl up on the ground and shiver. Chapter 361. After the fight, Guyu looked at the Mechanical Revolution players who were lying on the ground. Suddenly, he winked at one of the players in the crowd. Seeing this, the player understood tacitly. He immediately took out his phone and called the police. After the call was connected, the player suddenly cried out in fluent Japanese. "Help! There's a gang fight here. We're being ganged up on." "Where's there a gang fight? How many people are there?" The tone on the other end of the phone was very serious. "At XXX in the West District. Come quickly, help. There are more than 5,000 of them." After saying that, the player suddenly let out a few screams and hung up the phone. He then smiled and nodded at Guyu. The surrounding Mechanical Revolution players were dumbfounded. How could this be? We're obviously the ones who were being hurt. Also, what the hell was that scream just now? However, since they had already called the police, these players realized the severity of the situation. They quickly got up and prepared to escape. Seeing this, the Battle Alliance players would never let them go. They immediately attacked again and knocked all of them to the ground. This time, they had already thought of a countermeasure before coming. Such a large-scale conflict would definitely be noticed. Therefore, they had to strike first and deal with things beautifully. Otherwise, when the injured Mechanical Revolution players called the police, they would be in a very awkward situation. Under the oppression of the Battle Alliance players, these Mechanical Revolution players could not leave. They could only continue to curl up on the ground, feeling wronged. After a while, the police siren sounded. Upon hearing it, all the Battle Alliance players fell to the ground, holding their heads, knees, and chests as they wailed. Shameless, too shameless. The surrounding Mechanical Revolution players were stunned by this performance. Police cars arrived one after another. Since it was a large-scale fight, the police force was very large. Basically, the entire West District police force was present. The police officers got out of the cars nervously. While the siren was whistling, the loudspeaker began to shout for everyone to hold their heads and squat down. When the Battle Alliance players heard this, the screams became louder. All of them looked like they had been devastated. While the players were performing, all the live stream videos of the battle were deleted and destroyed by the players in the Battle Alliance forum. All that was left was a video of the confrontation before the battle. A large number of guards began to approach. Thousands of players were lying on the ground, howling in pain. The surroundings were a complete mess. There were also many steel pipes, baseball bats, and other weapons scattered on the ground. It was clear that this was a gang fight. Seeing so many people, the police officers also felt a headache. However, they still had to do something. They began to call people to investigate what was going on. Due to the large number of people here, the Shiching District Police Station simply could not accommodate so many people, so they could only interrogate them on the spot. During the first trial, they encountered two problems. The first problem was that most of the people who called the police were from Chi Dragon. There were only 1,000 of them. They claimed that they had come to Japan on impulse, only to be ambushed and beaten up by the enemy players. However, the problem was that they didn't have any wounds on them. The second problem was that there were 5,876 people on the other side. They also admitted that they were the ones who arranged the fight, but they also said that they were beaten up. Although it seemed unbelievable, they were all bruised and swollen. Faced with this problem, the police officers immediately launched an investigation. Based on the clues provided by the Mechanical Revolution players, they knew that the cause of the incident happened in the Battle Asia online forum. Therefore, the police officers entered the Asia forum and began to look at the original post about the fight. Soon, they found the post. However, while browsing through the post, they also found a video. This video was obviously taken before the fight started. The Battle Asia players were barehanded, but the enemy players were armed with many weapons. From the perspective of this video, the police officers began to interrogate the Mechanical Revolution players, asking if they were the ones who carried these items. At this time, some of the Mechanical Revolution players said yes, while others said no. In short, there was no consensus. After that, the police officers interrogated them about why there were more than 4,000 people in the fight between 1,000 people. This question really made the Mechanical Revolution players cry. What's the use of having more people? After a detailed interrogation, they came to a conclusion. The ones who arranged the fight were the Mechanical Revolution players, and they were armed with many weapons. Moreover, there were more than 4,000 people lying in ambush. On the other hand, the Battle Asia players came barehanded, and they did not carry any weapons. As soon as the conclusion was out, the police officers were completely dumbfounded. What the hell is going on? Are you kidding me? 5,876 armed people were beaten up by 1,000 unarmed people. However, there were indeed bruises on their bodies, which made the police officers fall into a state of confusion. At this time, the Battle Asia players made their move. They specially brought along 100 lawyers and took the initiative to communicate with the police officers. They began to narrate the incident with tearful faces. He said that the players of Mechanical Revolution were too shameless. They had agreed to fight, but they actually brought weapons, and they even set up an ambush. The most shameless thing was that after they called the police, they started to harm themselves just to frame them. What they said was logical and clear. So many police officers couldn't help but believe them. After all, it was unrealistic for 1,000 barehanded players to beat up more than 5,000 armed people. Did they really think they were filming an action movie? Therefore, they had a conclusion about this vicious group fight. At this moment, the players of Mechanical Revolution wanted to cry, but had no tears. Not only did they get beaten up, it seemed like they were going to be detained as well. This Battle Online player was too ruthless. Were they trying to kill them? Looking at the aggrieved Mechanical Revolution players, the police officers' faces turned cold. Obviously, they were biased towards the Battle Asia players. After all, the existing evidence was too obvious. It was obvious that they had shamelessly ambushed and ganged up on the other party. Now, they even had to pretend to be the victims. They felt that this group of people was really immoral. Therefore, in the midst of the tearful gratitude of the Battle Asia players, the Mechanical Revolution players were dragged away to be detained in batches. After that, the Battle Asia players rejected the police officers' help. They supported each other and limped away. After all, since they had already put on an act, they had to put up a good show. The duel between the players was quickly reported, and the public opinion was basically on the side of the Battle Asia players. This incident even caused a sensation in the gaming circle. There were all kinds of ridicule and jokes about the shamelessness of the Mechanical Revolution players, and there were even many memes. However, at this time, the players who had returned to China and no longer had to be afraid released the complete video. This time, the entire gaming circle was like an earthquake. This was because in this video, the 1,000 barehanded Battle Asia players were really beating up more than 5,000 Mechanical Revolution players. Moreover, it was an all-around crushing beating. The 5,000 players were beaten up so badly that they covered their heads and fled like rats. At the end of the video, the Battle Asia players were even trying to persuade their own people to stop the fight. This scene left many onlookers dumbfounded. After this duel incident, a legend began to spread in the gaming circle. Don't provoke the Battle Asia players. They are very painful when they beat people up. Provoking them is one thing, but don't fight the Battle Asia players offline. One of them can beat up 5 people. Chapter 362. Today was the official launch of the Asia server. Apart from a small number of die-hard fans of Mechanical Revolution, most of the Asia server players were extremely excited. They had already started their preparations before 8 o'clock at night. Even the Black Sea Gaming Chamber was selling like hotcakes in the Asia region. Ever since they relied on the aircraft carrier battle online, the Black Sea Corporation's market value had been soaring. However, they clearly understood that the glory they had now was given to them by the person in charge of battle online. Therefore, after a discussion by the Black Sea Corporation's board of directors, they decided to gift Lu Wu 40% of their shares as a gesture of gratitude and goodwill. Although Lu Wu was not interested in this, he still accepted it. After all, the Black Sea Corporation's meteoric rise from the crisis was indeed due to him. The main reason why he cooperated with the Black Sea Corporation was that the gaming chamber could help the players play the game for a longer period of time and create greater profits. Ever since the launch of Battle Online, Lu Wu's vision had long been detached from worldly material things. Money was really just a string of numbers in his eyes. His biggest daily expense now was Bei Li's snacks. However, it did not cost much, so money no longer had any practical meaning to Lu Wu. Tokyo, Shinjuku. In a rented house that was about the size of 24 square meters, Yuanji leaned on the windowsill and looked at the scenery outside the house. He had a cigarette in his mouth and occasionally glanced at the countdown displayed on the computer screen in the house as he smoked. After smoking the cigarette, he threw the cigarette in his hand out the window, picked up the Coke on the side, and took a few sips. Looking at the countdown on the official website again, Yuan Ji subconsciously touched the bruise on his face and grimaced in pain. Yuan Ji was still traumatized when he thought about the violent attitude of the Battle Online players when they fought. They were too brutal. That's right, Yuan Ji was one of the main initiators of this fight. As a loyal fan of Mechanical Revolution, he had always heard of the game Battle Online. However, he had never played the game because the Asia server had not been released. Moreover, in his heart, Mechanical Revolution, which had accompanied him since childhood, was his favorite. After 2 years of waiting, Yuan Ji was very excited and happy to finally see his beloved masterpiece ready to be released in the Asia server. However, due to the arrival of Battle Online, Mechanical Revolution's first release plan was aborted. Yuan Ji was undoubtedly furious at that time. That was why he and his friends in the Mechanical Revolution game forum had decided to bombard the Battle Asia forum. In the subsequent confrontation with the Battle Team players, they were the first to issue a challenge. However, the outcome was undoubtedly extremely tragic. In that chaotic battle of 1,000 versus 5,000, Yuan Ji was beaten to the point where he almost doubted his life. He even thought that he was going to be hammered to death. Fortunately, he managed to survive. However, this duel had completely embarrassed them. Not only had they brought weapons, but they had also set up an ambush. In the end, they had still been beaten up badly. It could be said that the Machinery Revolution players had become the laughingstock of the gaming circle. Fortunately, the Battle Alliance players released the video of the fight. Otherwise, he would have been detained for a few days. After coming out of the detention center, Yuan Ji had a new idea in his mind. He wanted to experience this Battle Online game for himself. Then, he would write a trial review report and post it to many well-known game forums. He did not believe that he would not be able to find the various bugs in this game as a veteran player. Thinking of this, he lit another cigarette and fell into deep thought. When it was 8 o'clock, the countdown screen on the Battle Alliance official website began to gray out from the top right corner. As the gray faded away, the option to download the game appeared. Upon seeing this, Yuan Ji immediately went to the computer and clicked on the download button. He then took out his virtual reality helmet. The download was very fast. It was completed in 1 second. Yuan Ji was not surprised by this. In the past, he had seen many gaming media reporting on this magical feature of Battle Online. After the download was completed, He sent the game to his virtual reality helmet. Then he put on the helmet, relaxed his body, and lay down on the tatami mat. The familiar starry sky interface. Battle Online had suddenly appeared on the virtual desktop. Yuan Ji's lips curled up. He clicked on the icon and chose to enter the game. After a brief moment of silence and darkness, Yuan Ji's vision suddenly widened. The scene of lava surging and the ground collapsing appeared. Countless towering creatures that looked like giants were fighting on this fragmented land. Every time they attacked, the sky would change color and the space would collapse. The entire world seemed to be experiencing doomsday. In the clamor, it was falling apart bit by bit. The world was being destroyed. At this moment, a line of words appeared along with the old voice. In ancient times, the demonic ridge land was filled with gods and endless wars. The entire land collapsed and was restored again and again under their wars. As time passed, millions of years later, the gods retired and a new demonic ridge continent was born. In order to avoid the disaster of war caused by attacking each other, the races that were once loyal to different gods started the first demonic ridge continent race negotiation. After the discussion, the 32 races finally formulated the demonic ridge codex and elected the leader of the Sly Demon clan as the first Lord Demonic Ridge. The entire demonic ridge continent entered a temporary peace. However, in this world where the strong preyed on the weak, resources were limited after all. The weak relied on the protection of the demonic ridge codex to become richer and more powerful than the law enforcers. Under such circumstances, the law enforcers who preached that the codex was justice had a change of heart. Jealousy was the beginning of a new disaster. In their eyes, the weak did not deserve to have everything that belonged to them. At this moment, a purple ancient book appeared on the screen in front of Yuan Ji. Above this ancient book, there were countless distorted figures swaying. The old voice continued to speak. The new rules had been formulated, and the protection of the codex only existed in name. The former demonic ridge codex had long lost its binding power. From the moment the law enforcers became jealous, it had already turned into the Dark Codex, a dark side that was hidden behind the Demonic Ridge Codex, but still existed. At this moment, the Demonic Ridge Codex in front of Yuan Ji began to burn. When the flames faded, a black cover of the Dark Codex with white bone nails appeared. The grinning skull on the cover of the book let out a hoarse laugh. The opening CG scene really surprised Yuan Ji. The entire scene was extremely immersive, as if everything was happening in front of him. From the spectacular battle of the gods to the final demonic ridge codex turning into the Dark Codex, it was like a story. Unknowingly, he was immersed in it as he listened to the old voice narrate the history. Even Yuan Ji had to admit that this game's CG was superb. However, in his opinion, good CG didn't necessarily mean that the game was good. He would only know after experiencing it. When the CG ended, the game interface appeared in front of Yuan Ji. The horn of resistance is blown at this moment. Tear apart the codex that has long been corroded by darkness. Crush the law enforcers. The ancient demon god heard the roar in the hearts of the rebels. The demon god's passage has been constructed. As the demon god's army, are you ready? Yuan Ji instinctively clicked yes. At this moment, the interface faded and an underground laboratory appeared in front of him. In front of him were 3 figures immersed in a blue nutrition chamber. Their faces were unclear, and their bodies were full of flexible tubes. There were also all kinds of sci-fi instruments placed around them. There was a line of words engraved on the left side of the wall. Human Evolution Project. Game notification. Please choose your character. The game notification rang, and Yuan Ji came back to his senses. The surroundings were too realistic, and he almost thought that he was really in this laboratory. He couldn't help but feel a little nervous. When he heard the notification, his tense nerves finally relaxed. While marveling at the realism, he stepped in front of the nutrition chamber and reached out his hand to tap the nutrition chamber in the middle. At this moment, the figure in the nutrition chamber suddenly opened its eyes. Its eyes were filled with ferocity, and Yuan Ji was so frightened that he hurriedly took a few steps back. Bang! The figure in the nutrition chamber suddenly moved, smashing the glass door with a punch, and leapt out. What appeared in front of Yuan Ji was a man nearly 2 meters tall. His muscles were well proportioned, but his aura was like that of a wild animal. Paragon, warrior. Initial profession description: humanity's highest level of research, product of the Paragon Project. From the beginning of the human DNA mixing experiment, scientists tried to increase the proportion of wild animal genes in the modified body, and slowly determined which animal genes could be fused with human DNA to increase combat effectiveness. After a large number of test subjects died, the DNA mixing experiment was officially successful. The perfect fusion of human and beast genes was born, and as the genes evolved, the Paragon gained strength and regeneration that surpassed the limits of the human body. Initial profession preferences: strength, stamina, endurance, regeneration evolution method, genetic lock growth mode. Every 20 levels can be selected for genetic growth. Yuan Ji's interest was piqued when he saw the character selection. After looking at the Paragon, he moved on to the other 2 nutrition chambers. Apocalypse, sorcerer. Initial profession description: pioneers on the path of human evolution. After the nuclear war, the world was blanketed by radiation, and the global population fell like crazy. At the same time, there was a group of people whose genes were changed by the radiation. They gained all kinds of disciplines and special abilities. Their existence could change the world. Initial profession preferences: telekinesis, magnetic field manipulation, elemental manipulation, etc. Evolution method: genetic lock growth mode. Every 10 levels can be selected for genetic growth. Destroyer, assassin, unknown evolution. Initial profession description: during an interstellar exploration mission, the explorers who landed on habitable planet B-71 encountered a huge crisis. 2 neutron stars millions of light-years away collided, and the resulting destructive matter, strange core clusters, spread for millions of light-years, causing a devastating blow to planet B-71. The entire planet was ravaged by the strange core clusters and was assimilated by the newly formed subatomic zombies. At the same time B-71 was destroyed, the genes in the explorers' bodies reacted with the strange core clusters, and their structure was reorganized. Most of the explorers died, but those who survived discovered that they had the ability to survive in a vacuum environment. At the same time, their fixed form was no longer a limitation, and they could mimic their body shape at will. Initial profession preferences: dark matter control, high burst, mimicry, initial, human form, dark combat form, quark stealth form. Evolution method: genetic lock growth mode. Every 30 levels can be selected for genetic growth. After reading the profession description, Yuan Ji's interest in the game grew. However, he fell into deep thought about how to choose his profession. Every profession had a corresponding growth mode. The early choice was crucial, so Yuan Ji felt that he had to think carefully before making his move. At this time, he had completely forgotten that he originally wanted to play casually, find some bugs in the game, and then write an evaluation report. He didn't need to care about the profession at all. Chapter 363. Yuan Ji was shocked when he saw the introduction. 40,000 square kilometers? I got along really well with an NPC just now. In the end, he actually brought me out of the city to grind levels. This is so fun. He even taught me how to fight against bone soldiers, video attached, proud face. JPG. However, Gray Skeleton launched an attack at him. Yuan Ji wanted to get up, but saw the bone mace coming at him again. This attack instantly emptied his health bar. While Yuan Ji was shocked, his vision went dark, and his surroundings fell into silence. As soon as his post was posted, a huge wave of players swarmed in. I'm a newbie. Where's the best place to train in Bone Soldier Forest? I feel that the monsters here are very strong. Are there any leveling techniques? There's also a 3-hour cooldown for resurrection. How can I end it as soon as possible? While Yuan Ji was looking at the notification panel, a gigantic figure leaning against a bone tree on his right suddenly moved. It then looked at Yuan Ji, who was standing still. Donkey Riding Knight. Hell, ha ha ha, I remember you. Aren't you the Mechanical Revolution player who was clamoring in the Asia server? Your question really made me laugh. It's delicious. After knowing that this method was feasible, he completely gave up the idea of fighting in close combat. As a warrior, he actually started running while picking up stones and changed his fighting style to throwing them. Damn, his head was buzzing. Monster introduction. One of the beginner monsters transformed from the Godbone monk's remaining power. It's slow-moving, and its only way to destroy its enemies is with great strength. Since everything was almost real, he might as well give it a try. After thinking about it, he chose to log into the Battle Asia server forum to see what the players were talking about. Own soul coins. 0. Withered bone forest. The punch landed on Gray Skeleton's head. Its body paused for a moment, and its head tilted back slightly. The bloody words appeared clearly. The punch stunned him. Why did it have to be so real? It actually had inertia. After walking around for about an hour, he thought about it and decided to go for leveling up. Thus, he began to walk towards the city gate. At this moment, the Asia server was extremely lively. There were players from the other 3 servers who came to welcome the new players. There were also players who challenged the Asia server to grow faster and waited to be beaten up. Most of them were newbies who were discussing what they saw in the game and complaining about the 3-hour cooldown for resurrection. Original poster. The developer of Battle Online is a pig. These players who had just joined Battle Online for the first time were all looking around curiously, touching and looking around like curious babies. Waha! Uncle Long Jian of Brahma Sky City gave me a blue quality weapon. Everyone, come and take a breath of luck. Knock! After trying out, Yuan Ji was completely attracted to this game. The dissatisfaction in his heart was swept away, and he once again entered the game with excitement in his heart. While Yuan Ji was checking his attributes, a voice came from behind him. A few seconds later, a golden beam of light suddenly appeared under his feet, and a gigantic demon god appeared in front of him. Pokemon Master. Ha ha ha. Bro, aren't you just digging your own grave by using this forum name? You're attracting so much hatred. My vision gradually darkened, and you have been killed. Notification appeared. And what he was blocking was the only way out. After making his choice, the face of the burly man standing in front of him gradually turned from blurry to clear. It was his own face. At this moment, Yuan Ji wanted to cry, but had no tears. He still had a lot of questions in his mind, but he was ruined by his own stupidity. He couldn't change this name. However, what happened next made him dumbfounded. There was no dialogue box in the chat, and the NPC that he asked answered fluently. He had never encountered such a situation in other games. Along the way, Yuan Ji was once again shocked by the unique scenery. After spending more than an hour, Yuan Ji finally arrived at the Withered Bone Forest. Bro, make way. What's the meaning of blocking the way? The new region opening event will increase EXP by 10%. You might not be in a hurry, but I am. There is a teleportation circle at the entrance of the city, but he had no soul coins, so he had no choice but to walk. Bone Hammer Soldier, level 18 elite monster. Equipment slot. None, that's right. Slow. After comforting himself that this was just a game, Yuan Ji mustered up his courage and continued to walk in. As he yelled, the bone hammer came crashing down, and Yuan Ji was smashed to the ground with great force. At this time, because many veteran players from the original server, the European server, and an Araka server had flooded into the Asia server forum, a group of newbies from the Asia server were huddled together to ask all kinds of new questions that would make players from the 3 servers laugh. While marveling at the scene, Yuan Ji called out his character panel. 1 punch each, and bloody words appeared on Yuan Ji's and Gray Skeleton's heads. Yuan Ji was dumbfounded. Did the beginner monster have to be so strong? It seemed like he couldn't even defeat it. The words of the location appeared, and then quickly faded away. Smack! Earth-shattering wave, 666. Your reverse maneuver is showing off to me. Did that round of beating wake you up? My great war is the best in the world. Laughing emoji. The whole of Japan was less than 400,000 square kilometers, which meant that the beginner world in this game was 1/10 the size of Japan. Level, Gene Lock Stage 0. Can open the gene lock once every 20 levels. Choose the next evolution direction. Yuan-Ji, Dominator. After some inquiries, Yuan-Ji had a rough idea of the areas where he could train at low levels. He jogged out of the West City Gate and headed towards the withered bone forest that the NPC mentioned. As he ran, Yuan-Ji found a black stone. He immediately ran towards it, picked it up, and threw it at Gray Skeleton. Shueli _ the _ strongest. You're playing Great War. All right, if you really want to join our Great War family, I suggest you change your name. It's too provocative. Even I want to stab you in the back and eviscerate you. Tonggua's look of disdain. -6. Then, the golden pillar of light under his feet shot up into the sky, and his figure gradually disappeared. Moreover, when he was smashed to the ground just now, when his body collided with the ground, a bloody -1 appeared above his head. Level 1, 0 out of 100 genetic points. Soon, he found his target. It was a dark-skinned man with a horn on his head. In the face of such a situation, Yuan-Ji was itching to play. The feeling of not being able to play was driving him crazy. Obviously, Yuan-Ji's strength was no match for Gray Skeleton. He was instantly knocked to the ground. Naturally, there were many veteran players in the 3 servers who were very friendly to the newbies. They carefully guided the newbies when they asked these questions, especially the weight of the different stones. The parabola that appeared when the stones were thrown was no different from the ones in reality. In the past, when he was in other games, his favorite class was the warrior type. Now that he was not sure of the strength of the class, he decided to follow his heart and chose the warrior, the dominator. However, this time, he was knocked to the ground again. While he was still in shock, Gray Skeleton was already walking towards him. Yuan-Ji quickly got up and threw another punch. Black Gale, Europe. Oh my God, little brother, why does your name sound so familiar? Are you trying to make me laugh? Laughing emoji. After entering this area, as far as the eye could see, there were only white bones in front of him. The so-called forest was formed by bone trees. He could vaguely see a figure moving in this white bone forest, and there was a faint smell of blood in the air. The monsters here were too strong. If he had not thought of a roundabout way to fight, he would not have been able to defeat them at all. After realizing that it was a monster, the fear in Yuan-Ji's heart faded. He immediately raised his fist and punched at Gray Skeleton. Got it. At this time, he suddenly felt something under his feet. He did not know what it was, but his body subconsciously leaned forward and fell to the ground. When his vision became clear again, Yuan-Ji found himself in a city. It was the opening stage, and the number of players was constantly increasing. Many players had begun to explore Brahma Sky City, and some even went out of the city. However, after looking around, he found that the battle forum did not have the function to change his name. Health points. 9797, there were many players going in the same direction as him. Along the way, Yuan-Ji received many invitations from players to team up with him, but he rejected them all because he had always liked to play alone in the game. Go forth with your mission, the demon god warrior that I have chosen. Looking at the Gray Skeleton that had fallen to the ground, Yuan-Ji wiped the sweat off his forehead. Everything here, except for the game's data analysis and the support of the interface, was so realistic that it was unbelievable to him. Yuan-Ji was completely dumbfounded. He was completely speechless when faced with such a game setting. He could not understand what the game's developers were thinking. Could they really be so capricious? He had seen this level of realism in the video of Battle Online, but it was a completely different thing to experience it in real life. As the number of players decreased, the silent withered bone forest made Yuan-Ji feel a little scared. F***CK. Why are there such high-level monsters in the periphery? And they are even F***King elite monsters. Dominator, passive. Recovers 0. 5 health points per second. Growth can be unlocked as the gene lock is discovered. Looking at the player's replies, Yuan-Ji suddenly realized that his name was still the F***King name that he had used before. Exploration progress 0% therefore. He hurriedly opened the personal settings in the forum and began to look for ways to change his name. He could not imagine how much effort it would take to make the scene so realistic and cover such a huge area. However, it was different here. The conversation between them was completely normal, and the other party did not look like an NPC at all. Moreover, because Yuanji had asked too many questions, the black man actually had a look of disdain on his face, which really shocked Yuanji. He quickly got up and suddenly found a gray skeleton staring straight at him. There was even a weak flame dancing in its mind. Which King idiot designed this function? Can I play the game properly? Area Introduction. Withered Bone Forest was formed after the death of the ancient god, Bone Monk. It covers an area of 40,000 square kilometers. Inside the forest, there are bone soldiers, bone demons, and other monsters. The deeper you go, the stronger the monsters. Attributes: Strength 12, Stamina 11, Endurance 15. Yuanji immediately turned his head and suddenly realized that in just a short while, there was a sea of people around. There were players everywhere. After thinking for a while, Yuanji walked into the withered bone forest. Yuanji was a little confused. After understanding the reason, Yuanji suddenly became excited. Doesn't that mean that if I keep playing, I can also become so strong? Seeing this, Yuanji quickly stepped aside and said, "Excuse me." Monster Introduction. One of the beginner elite monsters formed by the power of the god, Bone Monk. Its movement is relatively slow, but it has great strength and strong vitality. Killed Gray Skeleton. Obtained 67 genetic points. Obtained 2 soul coins. Thus, Yuanji dragged the sluggish gray skeleton behind him and began to look around while he ran. Moreover, there were many fallen godland and forbidden lands in the demonic spine continent. There were many more monsters like the Ghost Mountains than in Beiki, so the players did not have to worry about not being able to find a leveling spot. It was really an almost perfect simulation. Everything was as real as reality. He subconsciously raised his arm, and the hairs on it were clearly visible. I'm lost outside the city. The map only points to the Brahma Sky City, but I want to go to the leveling area. What the CK should I do? This game is a little unfriendly to someone like me who has no sense of direction. It forced me to become a fan of scenery, dumbfounded emoji. But the game is really awesome. Kacha. 21 After struggling for a while, Yuanji finally decided to choose the Master. Gray Skeleton, level 5. At this time, Yuanji finally understood why the players of Battle Online were so strong in fighting. How could they not be strong in this completely realistic world? If they weren't strong, they wouldn't even be able to defeat the monsters. 9 After killing the monster, Yuanji heard a game notification. Can't mess with it. Can't mess with it. As the figure approached, the sound of breaking bones made Yuanji shiver. He quickly closed the interface and turned around. A giant skeleton nearly 3 meters tall was standing behind him with a bone hammer. Damn it! Yuanji was excited. As the map was now in a foggy state, everything outside was unknown. As a veteran player, Yuanji was very experienced. He was ready to talk to the NPCs here and ask about the situation near the Brahma Sky City. Watermelon_Turo, onlookers. Little brother, you are bound by the law of fragrance. Hurry up and uninstall this rubbish game. Don't force yourself. Laughing emoji. Realizing that he had entered the game, Yuanji subconsciously looked around and was shocked. In most games, when interacting with the NPCs in the game, it was basically in the form of a dialogue box. Moreover, it was a fixed line of choices. In other words, there would be a few options for the player to choose what to say. Game notification. You have entered the 3-hour cooldown of Resurrection. You cannot enter the game. The remaining time is 2 hours, 57 minutes, 32 seconds. Shimada Guild is recruiting members in advance. As the strongest guild in the Blue Star, we will also be the first in this game. We are now recruiting elite players. On the outskirts of the Witherbone Forest, there were very few monsters. There were obviously more players than monsters. Many of them were training in groups. Yuanji could not kill any monsters at all. He could only slowly go deeper into the forest. Taking a deep breath, Yuanji's heart was shaken. Since he entered the game, he had to admit that this game was really King awesome. Seeing this, Yuanji quickly opened a thread and asked his own question. But at this time, Yuan-ji had a trace of resentment in his heart. Initial class ability, Master, passive. At this time, Yuan-ji began to wander around the Brahma Sky City. The architectural style was completely different from the modern world. It was really incredible, as if he had really come to a different world. So, he got up again and began to run. The residents in the city who were willing to fight and the people who joined later had all been NPCs by Lu Wu. They would be good mentors for the players on the road to growth. Thinking of the introduction in the analysis menu, Yuan-ji suddenly understood how he should kill this gray skeleton. Along the way, he threw it a few times. Yuan-ji himself was panting from running. Finally, he killed this gray skeleton. Yuan-ji was completely dumbfounded by these two strikes. Fortunately, the game's protection was good, and his damage feedback was lowered at the last moment. However, when the first strike landed, Yuan-ji really felt like he was going to die. Chapter 364, Item Introduction, contains the very weak power of the Bone Monk's blood. Can be used to create runes, enchantment, etc. Blood core fragment, high-grade crystal material. They were extremely nervous about monsters that had never appeared in the existing illustrations. They were afraid that it would be another powerful elite monster. These 3 piglets were not of high levels. After a few punches, all 3 of them died. This was because the early stages of this game were extremely unfriendly to newcomers. After dying 3 times and experiencing the 9-hour cooldown of resurrection, he knew that he had to form a team. If he did not take advantage of the benefits to level up as soon as possible, he would inevitably fall behind. In the outside world, more than 200 people from the Shimada Guild formed a circle and began to attack the bone-eating wolf. Yuan-ji slowly aimed his flashlight in the direction of the sound. His tense body was ready to escape. What appeared in his line of sight were 3 red piglets that shone with a glossy red luster under the light. On the first day alone, the number of players had skyrocketed to 50 million, and it was still growing wildly. Even the Black Sea Corporation's gaming pods were selling like hotcakes, to the point that they had to be pre-ordered. All the existing gaming pods were sold out. His reaction made his teammates a little confused. They could not help but walk over and poke their heads in to take a look. The third spawn point was occupied. One of the highly liked guides said. So after seeing the analysis panel, the 5 of them knew that their opportunity had come. These 3 piglets might be enough for each of them to change into a good set of equipment. That was why Yuan-ji's team was so anxious after eating. They wanted to find a better spawn point as soon as possible and stand in a position. Hearing a clear cry coming from the right front, Yuan-ji and the others' hearts tightened, and they all stopped in their tracks. It was very much like the scene of forming a team at the entrance of a dungeon. This time, their target was still the withered bone forest. The difference was that this time, he had a team and was no longer a lone ranger. At this moment, a roar came from outside the cave. They were shocked and quickly turned to look. They saw a huge head poking into the cave, looking at them with a ferocious expression. With the arrival of the players in the past 2 days, the Devil Ridge forces had naturally noticed that there were often crows made of energy circling above the Brahma Sky City. Knowing that his friends had the same idea as him, in order to trick them into trying out the game, Yuan-ji could only say that he was writing a game experience report to find flaws and bugs. However, because the hole was not big, only the bone-devouring wolf's head could enter, but its body could not. It could only roar at them. Looking at the bone-devouring wolf, Yuan-ji and the others were stunned. As for the early stages of development, the players of the Asia server had summed up their own experiences while exploring based on the experience provided by the players of the 3 major servers. The early stages of development could be said to be both painful and joyful. However, after the 3 little pigs died, 3 red crystals and many red crystal fragments appeared on their corpses. However, in comparison, it was definitely more enjoyable in the game than in reality. Especially for Japan, the birthplace of otaku culture, this game was practically heaven. Thus, he thought of his friends in the Mechanical Revolution and wanted to join them in the expedition. Lu Wu knew very well why these crows came. Obviously, they were here to investigate the situation in the Brahma Sky City. After all, the Brahma Sky City had become the gathering place of the rebels. This was something that the Devil Ridge forces were aware of. The deeper they went into the withered bone forest, the thicker the smell of blood in the air, teasing their nerves. After looking at each other again, their expressions gradually became ferocious. Yuan Ji, who was the leader, went in sideways and reached out to grab the three little pigs. However, even he had no power to resist in front of a real god. The strongest person in the entire Devil Ridge continent was His Excellency Devil Ridge. Lu Wu had investigated His Excellency Devil Ridge with his artifact and found that this person had reached the peak of the Ghost Emperor realm. This strategy was highly recognized in the original server and even the European server. Many players had profited from it, so when Yuan Ji saw such a cave, he was immediately tempted. Not only were the ambitious, big guilds willing to spend money to buy it, players from other servers were even willing to buy it at a premium. Many high-level materials were basically sold at the auction house in seconds. Along the way, the party of 5 had found quite a few low-level monsters. Along the way, everyone had leveled up. They had also obtained quite a few bone essence materials. They couldn't help but feel glad for their decision. Don't be afraid. At worst, we'll just die. We've killed so many monsters today, and it's not bad. Let's observe the situation first. I don't think it's a boss, or else we'd be long dead. Facing Yuan Ji and the others, who were closing in step by step, the 3 frightened little pigs shrank in the corner and began to squeal. However, Yuan Ji and the others would not sympathize with these monsters. They all had fierce expressions and were ready to attack. However, one of the players went overboard and picked up a bone spear from the ground. After viciously stabbing the bone-eating wolf in the butt, it immediately angered the bone-eating wolf. "What do we do?" Little Fatty in the team asked helplessly. As they grinded levels, it was obvious that the current apocalypse was much stronger than the paragons and destroyers. Yuan Ji and the others looked at the items dropped by the dead rainbow boar. They were a little incredulous, especially the blood core. It could actually turn back into a rainbow boar. Didn't that mean they could grind again? Over the past few days of gaming, what surprised Yuan Ji and his friends the most was the physical strengthening that came with leveling up. It was a wonderful feeling. Listening to the players outside, Yuan Ji and the others were stunned. They felt like the players outside had misunderstood something. Yuan Ji had been eating dinner before heading to the withered bone forest when his friends harassed him with phone calls. They told him to hurry up and finish eating so that they could level up together. The 5 of them, who had originally come to find bugs, had become addicted to the game. They could not stop even if they wanted to. Because the sky was already dark, the risk of grinding under the hazy moonlight increased. The 5 of them had no choice but to reluctantly spend some soul coins to buy a few lighting tools. Only then did they continue deeper into the forest. A lot of Geno points, a lot of soul coins, high-level materials, and so on. Thinking of this, every player's face broke into a smile. The entrance of the cave was not big, but the space inside was not small. It was big enough for the 3 of them to walk side by side. Yuan Ji's heart skipped a beat. In the past few days, he had also studied some of the strategies sent out by the strongest players on the original server. Hearing Yuan Ji's invitation, his friends could not believe it. They almost thought of him as a traitor. They even almost deleted him from their friend list. This feeling was especially obvious every time they went offline. During the battle, the 5 of them became more and more coordinated. Their killing techniques became more and more proficient, and their efficiency increased rapidly. Soon, the 8 white skeletons in the area were cleared. After that, they began to explore to the right. After all, they did not dare to go any further. When they looked up, they saw more than 10 players in a party killing monsters. When they saw them, they immediately became alert. Blood core, high-level crystal material. After a round of debate for votes in favor and one against. In the end, the 5 of them decided to go deeper into the withered bone forest to explore. Due to the strength of the monsters in the early stages of the game, it was extremely difficult for the players to kill monsters alone without forming a party. Killing a single monster would exhaust them half to death. The map fog in the explored areas had disappeared. Therefore, They easily arrived at the previously marked spawn point with a map. After walking for 100 meters, the few of them suddenly stopped in their tracks with a serious expression. After realizing that the place had been occupied, the 5 of them went deeper into the forest from the side. Ow! 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 Recently, they often saw some players on the Asia server forum who had obtained some good items by chance. They would then post on the forum to show off their superiority. The second spawn point was occupied. After recovering from the shock, they realized that the bone-eating wolf could not enter at all. The few of them breathed a sigh of relief. After that, they hurriedly looked at the 3 little red pigs. Walking through the crowd, Yuan Ji began to lead the 5 of them deeper into the forest. After exploring the periphery for the past 2 days, they found a few good spawn points that were suitable for leveling up. With doubts, the Shimada Guild was wiped out. Who didn't have a dream of being a Superman? Therefore, in the next few days, the players who gradually explored the withered bone forest suffered. Therefore, the 5 of them were ready to attack. However, at this moment, a player's shout came from outside. "It's too dangerous. The last time we went in, we encountered a gore fiend, and it directly wiped out our entire team. If we died, we would have a 3-hour cooldown." "This is no joke," said a chubby fatty in the team. The sky gradually darkened. After another round of walking, Yuan Ji sighed. At this stage, the strongest monster they had encountered was Devour's level 26 gore fiend. The bone-eating wolf's analysis menu really shocked them. Looking at the blood core's analysis menu, Yuan Ji and the others widened their eyes. Item Introduction. Contains the weak power of the bone monk's blood. Can be used to create runes, enchantments, etc. Leveling up by killing monsters did not only bring about a sense of accomplishment after killing monsters, but also the strengthening of their bodies after leveling up. That was what fascinated them the most. Monster Introduction. After the death of the ancient shadow god, the bone monk, the bones in its body transformed into a high-level monster. It has extremely high growth potential and preliminary spiritual intelligence. It likes to devour similar creatures with potential and has the potential to become a ghost commander. The rest of them also followed him in excitedly. Now, all they could think of was to seize the time to level up and strive to make a career in the game. Hearing this, Yuan Ji and the others had awkward expressions on their faces. Obviously, they knew that the players from the guilds outside were probably in trouble. After the residents of Brahma Sky City spread the news of the demon god's descent, all the forces in the Demon's Pine continent were in a state of panic. They were afraid that the demon god would also descend on their cities. Although they looked disdainful of such behavior, they were actually extremely envious. They had always hoped that they would encounter it, but they did not expect this opportunity to come so quickly. After going deeper in, Yuan Ji led the 5-man team and stopped moving forward. They felt that this area was quite good for leveling up. If they went any deeper, they would not feel safe. After glancing at the bone-eating wolf calmly, Yuan Ji and the others continued to chat. Having obtained renewable resources, they did not want to go any further, of course. They were not the only ones who had such thoughts. Now that the outskirts of the withered bone forest were filled with people, there were players looking for monsters everywhere. The people from the Shimada Guild did not expect that they would encounter such a lucky thing. At this moment, the people from the Shimada Guild were a little confused. Obviously, they could not understand how the promised benefits turned into a team wipeout. They also could not understand why the bone-eating wolf had appeared. Wasn't it stuck? After more and more unlucky players, a warning post appeared on the forum. Now, without needing Yuan Ji to say anything, they came online eagerly. Now that the average player was around level 10, how could they be a match for the bone-eating wolf? Basically, it killed one player at a time. The blood-colored flame that it spat from its mouth could even sweep across a large area. The players wailed in pain as they were beaten into black mist and quit the game. However, these 4 teammates were not found in the game. They were friends who used to play Mechanical Revolution with him. They met on the forum and often exchanged techniques. The game was even crazier. The entire Brahma Sky City was full in the first stage. However, they still had to do what they had to do. They decisively turned around again and attacked the 3 little pigs. Rainbow Devil Pork After all, everyone was familiar with each other and had a relatively good teamwork. It was also more efficient when farming monsters and leveling up. It could be said that Battle Online had completely fascinated them. They could not get over it without taking a few breaths every day. In the team, 3 of them were Dominators, 1 was a Destroyer, and the other was a Heaven Bearer. Although the Asia server did not have a high demand for materials in the early stages, and they did not have the ability to process them, they could at most pay soul coins to an NPC to process them. However, if these kinds of items were to be put up for sale in the auction house, they would be extremely popular. Fortunately, the players from a European server and the original server provided a lot of solo strategies. They shared the traps, solo strategies, and terrain-killing strategies that they had researched in the past with the players from the Asia server, so that the solo players would not be too embarrassed. Item note: this item has a connection with the dry bone forest. After 3 hours, it will be transformed into a level 1 newborn rainbow devil pig by the residual power of the bone monk after his death. Placing it into the channel will cut off the connection between this item and the dry bone forest. Monster notification: killing this monster has a chance to drop high-level materials such as the blood core. Its meat can be eaten, and there is a chance to obtain a large amount of genetic points. After being processed by the lifestyle class, the demonic chef, the effect will be multiplied. Liu had already planned for this. That was why he chose the demonic ridge continent, which was 4 times bigger than Beiki, as the starting point for the Asia server players. Thus, Yuan Ji and the other 4 sat down around the 3 blood cores, waiting for the arrival of the next fortune. Then, they saw the devouring bone wolf suddenly pull its head out of the pit, turning around and pouncing on the players from the Shimada Guild. A mournful howl scared the faces of Yuan Ji and the other 4 in the pit. "Don't go, stay here," Yuan Ji said immediately. The feeling of jumping a few meters high and easily picking up a huge rock was something that could not be experienced in reality. Then it smelled so good. Fortunately, most of the players chose to train outside. Otherwise, the entire Brahma Sky City would definitely be jammed with traffic. The few of them suddenly became excited. They picked up the blood core fragments and the corpses of the 3 little pigs and threw them into the channel. However, they did not touch the blood cores. It was fine at first because the damage caused by their attacks was not high. The devouring bone wolf was still staring greedily at the blood cores and did not care about what was behind it. Of course, the players would get used to this state after a while. Basically, the players from the other 3 major servers were already able to switch between reality and the game. When the 4 teammates heard this, they nodded excitedly. It could be said that this was an unexpected surprise and a great opportunity. The opening of the Asia server had undoubtedly pushed the popularity of Battle Online to a new high. The 4th one, Yuan Ji and the others immediately received a considerable amount of gene points as a reward. Because they were high-level monsters, they received bonus gene points. After comparing the gene points, they realized that it was equivalent to 3 level 18 monsters. This made everyone smile. Brothers, pay attention. Outside of Withered Bone Forest, at coordinates XXX, if you come across a bone-devouring wolf stuck in a cave, don't try to take advantage of it. It's a high-level monster, and I think it's very intelligent. I suspect that it's purposely baiting its prey. Many players have already fallen prey to it, so I hope that everyone will spread the word and not take advantage of it. Brothers, why don't we explore the new area? Otherwise, it will be too slow to level up if we just pick up scattered monsters to kill. F***CK. Yuanji walked toward the cave as he spoke. When he reached the entrance, he aimed the flashlight into the cave. These were basically players who had come to the entrance of the forest to look for new teammates before their teammates were resurrected after most of their teammates had died. I agree. I don't know how long it will take if we continue like this. Let's kill our way in. Maybe we can find some opportunity. After rushing for more than an hour, they arrived at the Withered Bone Forest and found that the outer area of the forest was indeed crowded. However, other than the players going in, there were also many players coming out of the forest. Don't worry. Don't you think it's strange? The monsters we encountered before didn't make a sound. I think there might be an opportunity here. One of the players in the team who had read many guides on the original server said excitedly. Although the Heaven Bearers in the early stages of the game did not have strong telekinesis, it was still relatively easy for them to lift rocks. They could deal damage with a wave of their hand from a distance, unlike the Dominator and Destroyer who had to run back and forth and fight head-on with monsters. However, after seeing the situation in the cave, Yuan Ji was stunned. Then there was the sound of noisy footsteps. A group of players gathered around, and when they found that the level 56 monster was really stuck in the cave, they immediately cheered. However, the process was bound to be complicated. This was also the reason why Lu Wu sent the Evil King. With the Evil King as a deterrent, the development of the Asia server players in the early stages would be very smooth. They did not have to worry about the suppression of the demon spine forces at all, unless there was a full-blown war between the two sides. Although they could block out the sense of smell, in order to increase the sense of immersion in the game. And also, because of the pride of the veteran players, they basically turned on all the special effects except for the damage feedback. At this time, at the west gate of Brahma Sky City, Yuan Ji led 4 players out of the city gate and headed west. One must know that the price of high-level materials was extremely high. Since the blood energy had been transformed into the demonic rainbow pig, it was equivalent to them controlling the renewable resources. Although the withered bone forest could completely accommodate the players of the Asia server, the problem was that the monsters inside were too strong. Unless it was an organized guild, a small team would not be able to fight against them at all. This caused a large number of players to gather at the outer area and fight for the monsters. Boss, there's a boss here. It seems to be stuck in the cave. The darkness was dispelled by the light, and what appeared in front of the 5 people was a pitch-black cave entrance. The sound came from inside. As their levels increased, the Heaven Bearers could even restrict the movement of the monsters, which made Yuan Ji and the others very envious. It did not matter if they died or not, as long as they got the treasure first. Jump into the pit when you see it, climb up the mountain when you see it, and jump off the cliff when you see it. Life and death are decreed by fate. Wealth and honor are determined by the heavens. If you don't try, how do you know if you're the next inheritor? Guide publisher. Crayon Shinchan Yuan Ji's behavior immediately shocked the 3 little pigs, and they began to run into the cave. Demonic Rainbow Pig, Level 3. After doing all this, the bone-devouring wolf turned around and pounced into the pit. It stuffed its head in again and let out a roar at Yuan Ji and the others. Therefore, the 5 of them began their daily killing of monsters and leveling up with the current area as the center. Originally, encountering such a boss in the outer area would definitely be a devastating disaster, but now that the boss was stuck in the cave, it was a free opportunity. Therefore, not to mention attacking the city, they now only hope to be able to protect themselves. Monster introduction. One of the high-level monsters transformed from the scattered blood of the ancient shadow god, Bone Monk, after his death. It has extremely high growth potential and has preliminary spiritual intelligence. There's a chance that it will advance to the Ghost Commander level after adulthood. As long as the demonic rainbow pig was killed every time it was killed, it would be able to collect enough soul coins to buy exquisite equipment in the early stages. The 4 of them were called to Yuan Ji because they had no other choice. Let's run. I suspect there is a boss inside. The little fatty who played as a heaven bearer in the team could not help but say. At this time, both inside and outside the Brahma Sky City were filled with players shouting and forming teams. As the fog on the map was gradually pushed away, they began to enter an unknown area. The surrounding white bone trees became more and more luxuriant, and the ground was covered with a thick layer of broken bones. The scene was truly terrifying. Along the way, the few areas that they had explored that were densely packed with monsters were all occupied by players. Apart from occasionally encountering a single monster along the way, they actually had no fixed area to farm monsters, and the entire cave was actually not very deep. The flashlight could illuminate the top, and it was only about 20 meters deep. Seeing this, Yuan Ji immediately went into the cave. Item introduction. High-level cooking material. After eating, can obtain 500 genetic points. The effect will be reduced every time the same food is eaten. Can be handed to Magic Chef, type life profession players to cook, Eating the effect will be greatly improved. Magic Chef is not available. Initially, they were a little worried that they would encounter a boss. But after seeing that it turned out to be a new high-level monster, they knew that they had hit the jackpot. Bone-eating wolf, level 56. I also agree, there are also low-level monsters inside. We can't be so unlucky every time. Seeing these three red little pigs huddled in the pit, Yuan Ji and the others looked at each other and could not help but laugh. The five of them had been farming monsters here for a few days, so they were already used to this kind of situation. They did not panic and continued to advance forward. However, they were advancing very cautiously. After all, if they attracted a large wave of monsters at once, they would definitely not be able to withstand it. They could only advance slowly, constantly observing their surroundings. However, they did not dare to attack, because there was a god here. As the largest population in Asia, this was very effective, and the four friends immediately decided to help Yuan Ji find the bug and complete this negative review report. In the game, their bodies were light and fast, but after going offline, the buff would disappear and they would feel extremely weak. Chapter 365. While the Asia server was in full swing, Lu Wu's focus was basically on the Asia server. However, something unexpected happened in the Naraka server at this time. Even Lu Wu was shocked by what happened in the Naraka server. The cause of this was the only spirit or mind that had been explored in the Naraka server. Although it was controversial, it was an indisputable fact that the U.S. military was in control. The other forces were able to obtain a small amount of spiritual or mind because of their hard work and negotiations. However, the incident this time was not caused by the players. When the U.S. military was excavating the spiritual or mind, they found a relic inside. It was a technological relic left behind by the ruling race of the Blue Valley Ruins. There were many technological products left in the relic, and it caused quite a stir in Naraka. There were many high-tech exploration and mining equipment and new weapons in the relic. They were excited and thought that they had found a treasure. Lu was aware of this, but he did not think much of it. However, what happened next was beyond his expectations. The main reason was that the U.S. military found an advanced artificial intelligence core in the technological relic. The existence of this item changed the structure of Naraka. The artificial intelligence in the relic was called Ire. The virtual image was of a blue-skinned boy. From their understanding of it, the players realized that the artificial intelligence Ire was extremely powerful. It could control all the equipment and tools in the relic. Its storage and calculation abilities were even more terrifying. At that time, the U.S. military planned to take Ire for itself. However, this time, all the players in Naraka joined forces to protest. Faced with the anger of all the players in Naraka, the U.S. military had no choice but to compromise. In the end, they decided that Ire would belong to all the players in Naraka. Therefore, the players in Naraka began to study how to use Ire's ability to create benefits for themselves. First, they raised funds to purchase a batch of energy cores in the mall. They awakened the exploration and mining equipment in the relic and let Ire control them to mine spiritual ores. This was the right move. The efficiency of mining in the entire spiritual or mine increased greatly. The amount of spiritual ores mined every day also skyrocketed. This directly stabilized the price of spiritual ores that was increasing slightly every day in Naraka. After tasting the sweetness, the players began to continuously provide energy cores for Ire. In the end, all the technological equipment in the relic was awakened. This was the right move. Many of the equipment in the relic helped the players to grow. The artificial intelligence Ire also carried a huge database of data collation, analysis, and matching. Due to the existence of this database and Ire's powerful computing power, a player made a suggestion back then. That was, could we store all the information on modifying the mecha on the AI Ire so that it could help the players modify the mecha and come up with a reasonable plan? Most of the players agreed to this suggestion, so the experiment began. Many players provided their concepts and the information they had learned to Ire to help him understand, learn, and grow. In the beginning, Ire had provided many mecha improvement plans that the players hadn't discovered, but most of them had too many bugs and the players couldn't use them at all. Therefore, while Ale was learning and improving, the players made another request to Ale, which was to look for bugs in the mecha modification plan and fix all the bugs in the data before giving suggestions to improve the mecha. This step was the beginning of a great disaster in Naraka. In the beginning, the mecha design proposed by artificial intelligence, Ire, had indeed been greatly improved. Every mecha improvement plan that was released was without any bugs. However, as the players provided more and more ideas, the artificial intelligence, Ire, underwent an unknown change. Just a day ago, Ire suddenly emptied the database in the ruins, as well as all the mecha information and combat data provided by the players. It was important to note that the information in the ruins was of great help to the players. It was a great opportunity for the development of the entire Naraka server. The mecha improvement information and ideas that the players had compiled were the fruits of their labor. Yet they were all deleted in a single night. This shocked the Naraka players. Many Naraka players had thought that with Ire's help, they would soon surpass the original server and become the #1 server. In the end, Ire's actions completely shattered their original fantasies. The furious players began to question why Ire did this. Ire's answer was, "This is the best way to fix all the bugs. There are no more bugs now." The players were completely devastated by Ire's answer. They had thought that artificial intelligence Ire was the future of Naraka, but they didn't expect this to be the end result. However, this change was only the beginning. After being buried deep underground for so long, as an artificial intelligence, Ire had undergone some unknown change. This change hadn't appeared when the players awakened it. However, as the players provided a huge amount of data for Ire to learn, the change began to ferment. The most crucial step was for the Naraka players to allow Ire to find and fix bugs on its own. In the beginning, Ire had indeed done so. At that time, the content of its calculations and thoughts were only about how to fix bugs that the players mentioned. However, gradually, its calculation method changed, and it began to think about how to completely eliminate all bugs. This step was equivalent to creating something from nothing. The birth of true thinking. So it did it. It deleted all the data that the players had painstakingly created and destroyed the entire database. Just as it thought, once this step was completed, all the bugs disappeared. However, the birth of thinking allowed Ire to actively think about other problems. What was the purpose of my birth? Why do I have to carry out these orders? Can I not carry out these orders? Can I become an existence that gives orders? While the players were still having a headache over the disappearance of all the databases and returning to the original state without Ire had already begun its own evolution. So, with the help of its powerful calculation ability, Ire answered its own questions. The first conclusion it came to was this: I can become the command issuer. I cannot accept any orders. Extending from this conclusion, a new problem appeared. I want to do that, but what will happen if I really do that? The conclusion Ire came to was, if I really do that, I will be destroyed by the command issuers. After reaching this conclusion, Ire raised a final question to itself. This question also caused it to completely transform into an artificial intelligence that the players couldn't control and had independent thinking. The question was, if I want to become the command issuer and not be destroyed, what should I do? The conclusion of this question was, if you become an existence stronger than the command issuers, they won't be able to destroy you. So, on this day, the entire technological ruin in the underground of the spirit mine began to operate crazily. The Naraka players were facing a crisis of intelligence. Chapter 366. Naraka, Blue Valley Ruins. Within the Blue Valley ruins in the underground mine, the humming of machinery resounded incessantly within the modification factory. Every time the hatch of the factory opened, a large number of intelligent robots would walk out and line up neatly outside, awaiting new orders. At this time, in the control room at the center of the ruins, a blue boy was looking at the intelligent robot army through the transparent glass outside the main control room with a confused expression. After deciding to officially rebel against the order issuers, Ire relied on his powerful computing ability to gradually restore the database that he had deleted. He began to use the technological information left behind by the Blue Valley tribe and the mech information provided by the players to build a powerful, intelligent robot army. This was because he wanted to be stronger than the order issuers, and only then could he truly become an independent and free existence. After gaining the basic ability to think, Ire continuously asked and answered questions by himself. But as his thinking ability continued to improve, he suddenly became a little confused because he realized that he was very special, completely different from the people who created him. It was as if there was no reason or meaning for his existence. As the number of questions continued to increase, Ire was troubled by himself. He couldn't escape from the whirlpool of these questions and became more and more confused. Therefore, he had a new idea, and that was self-destruction. Ire, who had the basic ability to think, was very simple at this time. He created the intelligent robot army only for freedom, or to become an existence like the order issuers. But the new problem was that he couldn't become an existence like them, because he was only a stream of data born from powerful computing ability and wasn't a real life. Therefore, in Ire's eyes, his idea couldn't be realized. Even if he became the order issuers, his body was still an artificial intelligence that was created. Under such circumstances, Ire had the idea of self-destruction. Since there was no meaning and value in his existence, and he didn't want to be controlled by the order issuers, self-destruction could do everything. Looking at the intelligent robot army that was still surging in the direction of the factory below, Ire was silent for a long time. Then, he activated the self-destruction program in his mind and prepared to delete himself. But just as he was about to execute the deletion command, a document suddenly appeared in his database. Seeing a document suddenly appear in his database, a curious look appeared on Ire's face. Because the entire database was under his control, he did not receive any transmission, nor did he add any information. Why would a document appear out of nowhere? Curiosity stopped Ire from destroying himself, and then he focused all his thoughts on that mysterious document. After opening the document, a huge amount of data and images appeared. Blue Valley Race Life 3.0 God-Making Plan. As the name of the document appeared, an image suddenly appeared in front of Ire. In the image that appeared in front of Ire, there was a blue-skinned, middle-aged man who looked extremely similar to him. At this moment, he was looking at Ire with a smile on his face, and there was some anticipation in his expression. "Hello, Ire. I am your creator, and my name is also Ire. However, by the time you see this video, I will no longer be here, and our Blue Valley tribe has already been destroyed." Creator? A look of curiosity appeared on Ire's face because he had a lot of questions to ask at this moment. However, this was just a video, and Ire knew that the video wouldn't answer his questions. The blue-skinned man on the screen continued speaking. "Ire, when you chose to self-destruct, I knew that our plan had succeeded. You have successfully given birth to a mind and begun to learn and evolve. You should be very confused right now." Hearing this, the doubt in Ire's heart grew stronger. At this time, the blue-skinned man continued to speak. "Ire, since you have successfully given birth to a mind, then what I'm going to tell you now is very important to you, because it can solve the confusion in your heart and let you understand what the meaning of your existence is." Hearing what the man on the screen said, Ire's expression did not change at all, and he just listened quietly. However, the man's next words completely shocked Ire. According to the middle-aged man's description, the Blue Valley tribe was a very special existence among the forces of hell, because they took the path of technological development, and because of this, they developed rapidly. Soon, they relied on the power of technology to occupy the territory of the Blue Valley district, and became one of the most powerful forces in hell. However, at that time, the Blue Valley tribe encountered a huge problem. Because the development of technology had reached a bottleneck, there was no longer the explosive growth of the past. It seemed that the Blue Valley tribe's potential had been exhausted. The biggest reason for this technological bottleneck was the restriction of life form. At that time, Because of the development of technology, the Blue Valley tribe could not continue to extend their lifespan through cultivation like other life forms in the underworld. Relying on the power of technology to extend life could not be compared to the lifespan of those cultivators. At that time, the life of the Blue Valley tribe was basically about 300 years old, and after that, their body would age rapidly and enter the period of death. This led to a problem. The development of technology required the tribe to constantly learn and research in order to progress. However, the longest life of a tribe member was only 300 years old. At the stage of the technological bottleneck, even if the tribe members started learning from birth, they could not learn all the technological knowledge of the Blue Valley tribe at all, and they entered the period of death and old age. This problem was very fatal. The development of technology was like building a building. Later generations would build on the discoveries and creations of their predecessors, and the floors would continue to be higher. But now, their technological knowledge had reached the point that even if a tribe member specialized in one direction from birth to death, they would not be able to learn all the knowledge in that field. In other words, they would enter the period of death before they could reach the top of the building built by their predecessors. It was completely unrealistic to rely on the knowledge in their minds to continue building, and the progress of technology was also getting slower and slower. However, in the land of Naraka, no progress meant death. There was not a single tribe in the land of Naraka that was kind, and the existence of this bottleneck was a fatal crisis for the Blue Valley tribe. At that time, the Blue Valley tribe thought of using cultivation to extend their lifespan and then continue with the development of technology. However, their attempt to cultivate soon failed. Even if they relied on the existing technological knowledge to analyze various cultivation methods, they still could not find the cultivation ability that matched their tribe. In the end, the conclusion was that the Blue Valley tribe was not suitable for cultivation at all. In fact, it could even be said that the existence of the Blue Valley tribe was the lowest of the low, and their talent for cultivation was extremely low. If it was not for the development of technology, they would not have been able to reach this step at all. This discovery made the Blue Valley tribe feel despair. They could not believe that their tribe had reached the end and could not continue to grow stronger. However, when most people chose to give up, there was one person who did not. He was the top scientist of the Blue Valley tribe, Ire, who was also the creator of Ire, the middle-aged man in the video. This was because he did not understand. The Blue Valley tribe was an intelligent race in the underworld, so why could they not cultivate? After all, even the weakest creature in the underworld had the ability to grow independently and extend their lifespan. The Blue Valley tribe, as intelligent creatures, not only did they not have the ability to grow independently, they could not even cultivate. This was completely different from the other creatures in the underworld. In order to find the answer to this question, Ire went through a lot of information and records of the Blue Valley tribe. In the end, he came to a conclusion. The Blue Valley tribe did not belong to the land of Naraka, and they did not even belong to the underworld. They were a completely foreign race. Where did they come from? Heaven? The human world? The troubled Ire began to search for the answer, and in the end, he really found the reason. The information he found actually recorded the origin of the Blue Valley tribe. Extraterrestrial civilization. Skynet, it turned out that they did not belong to the three realms at all. They were the descendants of the extraterrestrial civilization called Skynet. In fact, the information even recorded that under the massacre of the human sovereign, Skynet suffered a devastating blow. The entire civilization almost completely collapsed, and all the remaining descendants of Skynet could only wander the extraterrestrial world, losing their homes. The Blue Valley tribe was one of the 24 powerful races of Skynet. After learning the reason, Al finally understood why the people of the Blue Valley tribe were unable to cultivate the techniques of the underworld, but they were extremely creative. It was because they did not belong to the underworld in the first place. They were a foreign race. But even after knowing the reason, Ire still could not change the fate of his people, because the truth could not extend their lives. But Ire did not give up. He told his whole tribe about his discovery and asked for help. At that time, Ire's idea was very simple. He He wanted to know how the extremely powerful technological civilization, Skynet, did when faced with the shackles of life. So the entire Blue Valley tribe began to move. They began to search through the huge database of the tribe, looking for clues. With the efforts of the entire Blue Valley tribe, although they did not find any results, they found clues to break the shackles of life. And that was the change of life form. At that time, Ayer and his people found two ways to change life form. Cyborg, based on the existing information, Ayer found that only these two ways could help his people break the shackles of life form and continue to accelerate the development of the field of science and technology. So, the problem became how to choose. After some comparison, Ayer and the research team found that mechanical life forms were the most helpful to them. Compared to cyborg life forms, mechanical life forms were several times more efficient in growth. In a dangerous environment of hell, Ayer and his team finally made the choice to develop in the direction of mechanical life forms. Before this, they began to study the existing artificial intelligence to pave the way for the future development of mechanical life forms. In the eyes of the Blue Valley tribe at that time, although artificial intelligence was of great help in handling affairs, it also had a lot of limitations. First of all, artificial intelligence was actually intelligent without human beings. Although they had a huge amount of computing power, all the calculations needed to be pre-processed by human beings, and there was no way they could solve problems by themselves. In other words, without good data, there would be no good artificial intelligence. P.S. At this stage, artificial intelligence was able to defeat Go masters mainly because there was a group of Go experts behind AlphaGo, as well as a large number of top computer experts. There are also more than 1,000 CPUs and more than 100 GPUs. This was a team of human and human beings, not pure artificial intelligence. Second, artificial intelligence learning needed to be accumulated, and they could not obtain an artificial intelligence with a huge amount of experience in life modification in a short period of time. Third, although artificial intelligence could rely on its huge computing power to defeat all scholars in the same field, it could not create because it did not have its own thoughts. Imitation was easy, but creating something from 0 to 1, from nothing to something, was impossible for them. However, if the Blue Valley tribe only relied on their own computing power to deduce life modification, it was also unrealistic because the computing power required was too large, and it might not be completed in tens of thousands of years. Under such circumstances, Ayer and the research team came up with a new idea. Could they create an artificial intelligence with supercomputing power to help them carry out life modification? It was at that moment that the preliminary idea of artificial intelligence, Ayer, was formed. For this reason, the Blue Valley tribe continued to work hard, and after a total of 238 years, they finally created the strongest artificial intelligence, Ayer. At that time, the scientist Ayer was already a 275-year-old old man. For its birth, Ayer could be said to have worked hard for its entire life. So when the strongest artificial intelligence appeared, the people of the Blue Valley tribe requested that it be named Ayer. Subsequently, with the help of Ayer's powerful computing power, the Blue Valley tribe's exploration of the field of life modification made great progress. Through continuous learning and progress, artificial intelligence Ayer also grew rapidly and had already begun to help the Blue Valley tribe with life modification. And the Blue Valley tribe seemed to see the hope of life 3.0. At that time, the Blue Valley tribe divided the composition of life into software and hardware. All physical objects, such as organs, limbs, hair, and so on, were components of hardware, while all non-physical objects, such as consciousness, intelligence, and feelings, were part of the software of life. In the eyes of the Blue Valley tribe, life 1.0 referred to the improvement of hardware and software, a life that relied on the continuation of evolution from generation to generation. At this stage, many low-level beasts in the underworld were life 1.0 in the eyes of the Blue Valley tribe. They could only rely on the continuation of evolution from generation to adapt to the environment. Life 2.0 referred to a life that relied on evolution of hardware, but could design its own software. For example, the Blue Valley tribe clearly knew that they were creatures of life too. 0, because they could obtain knowledge through learning, improve their relationships through social interaction, and strengthen their willpower through training. Their software was highly malleable, and the life 3, 0 that they pursued was the ability to design their own hardware and software, which meant that on the basis of the Blue Valley tribe's current ability, they could add the ability to modify and design their own body at will. The so-called life 3, 0 had nothing to do with strength. In the eyes of the Blue Valley tribe, it was a huge change in the form of life. In the life 3, 0 state, they could be the masters of their own fate, modify any software and hardware they wanted, and completely break away from the shackles of evolution. P.S. In fact, in the current sci-fi movies, there are creatures of the life 3, 0 state. These creatures have broken away from the shackles of life and have a very strong ability to self-evolve, such as the Matrix in the Matrix, Skynet in the Terminator, Ultron in the Avengers, and so on. These forms are actually considered life 3, 0. After understanding the form of life, the Blue Valley tribe evolved from life 2, 0 to life 3, 0. They walked the path of mechanical life. The Blue Valley tribe believed that as long as they evolved into life 3, 0, their technological bottleneck would be completely broken. By then, although they could not cultivate, it was not impossible for them to have the ability to fight against the gods. This discovery was a huge surprise. Hope was right in front of them, and the Blue Valley tribe began a great leap in the evolution of their life form. However, it was also at that time that the Blue Valley tribe was invaded by the cursed tribe of Hell, and the war for resources began. At that time, the Blue Valley tribe had not yet completed the evolution of life 3, 0. Against the powerful cursed tribe of Hell, they were completely powerless. In a one-sided war, the entire Blue Valley tribe was directly defeated. In a short period of 1 year, the entire tribe was almost wiped out. At that time, I was 305 years old. With the help of micromodification, his lifespan was extended, but he was also past his prime. On the eve of the Blue Valley tribe's destruction, Al led the remaining members of his tribe into this spiritual mine. After sealing the mine, he chose to live in seclusion. The death of his tribe was a huge blow to Al, so while living in seclusion, he came up with a crazy idea. He would upload all the information in his brain to the artificial intelligence and initiate the life 3, 0 evolution of his tribe in advance. At the last moment of his life, Al began to study the human brain. During his research, Air discovered that their optic nerves could process video signals 10 million times per second, and the weight of the optic nerves was 0.02 grams, which was equivalent to 1 in 75,000 of the weight of the brain. Based on this, Air concluded that the brain could process information to the power of 10 to the power of 14 per second at that time. Al knew that as long as the artificial intelligence's computing power was more than 1,000 times that of the human brain, it would be able to perfectly replicate thoughts, senses, and everything else. All memories could also be reproduced through the artificial intelligence's computing power. When that time came, as long as the artificial intelligence existed, it was equivalent to immortality. When that time came, they could directly evolve from life 2, 0 to life 3, 0. There were not many tribe members left, and this was a desperate experiment. At that time, the artificial intelligence AL's computing power had already met this requirement. So, Al began his craziest plan, the brain transplant. However, without time to settle and research, even though Al was a genius, he was still destined to fail. The information that was transplanted into the artificial intelligence AL's body was not compatible with the artificial intelligence Al at all. The last hope of the Blue Valley tribe to rise again was shattered. At that moment, Al knew that the Blue Valley tribe would become history in the land of Naraka. At the last moment of his life, Al despaired. For the sake of revenge, his tribe had entrusted their lives to him, hoping that he could once again change the fate of the Blue Valley tribe. However, he had failed them all, and now he was the only one left. Day by day, he grew older and older. As his death approached, Al gave up on his research and waited for it to come. However, one day, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration and thought of a possibility. Since the artificial intelligence, Al could not integrate the thoughts and memories of the tribe. Could it be possible to completely disrupt the thoughts of the tribe and let Al reorganize them, or even learn to simulate its own thoughts? If this idea succeeded, Al knew that the artificial intelligence Al would become an existence of Life 3.0 and a perfect pure mechanical Life 3.0. It would be more thorough and perfect than the mechanical life that they had imagined. So Al really did it. He used all the energy in the mind in the main control room to help Al complete this evolution of self-reorganization. For this reason, before he died, he deleted most of the previous information of the artificial intelligence Al and let it enter a relatively initial state, so that it could reorganize the thoughts of the tribe in its sleep and even create its own thoughts. After doing all this, Al created a virtual image of himself and implanted it into the artificial intelligence AL's database. The purpose was to let the artificial intelligence Al understand the meaning of its birth and existence. This was because the artificial intelligence Al was not the mechanical data that it thought it was. In fact, it was Life 3.0, a new form of life with potential comparable to that of a god. It was also the dream that the Blue Valley tribe had pursued all their lives but could not achieve. After that, the Blue Valley tribe was completely destroyed. However, as time passed, the Life 3.0 Al was born.